Welcome back, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Cardboard Hands. We are back again with another episode with some banger hosts here. We have your usual suspects. Old Giovanni, retro specs here down below, over to the side, up top, wherever he's situated on the screen. But we have a newcomer, a new opponent approaches today. As is tradition with this podcast, we have a rotating third spot occasionally, and that third spot is going to be filled by none other than one of my good friends, one of the greats of the hobby, one of the Pokemon investor channels that started it all in the whole boom that I know you probably know already and love, but if you haven't heard of him, his name is Jake from Pokenomics. And without further ado, Jake, how you doing? Why don't you introduce yourself? Why don't you tell people where they can find you these days, what you're up to, and just generally how you doing, man?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Nice to be here with you guys and talk a little Pokemon. I interestingly, like yesterday, I got a little bit of a bug to go live on my channel after not going for a while. It was the first time I felt that in quite some time. Maybe inspired by you inviting me, on your channel and like talking to Radar about his podcast and bringing people on. It is fun talking Pokemon, particularly, once you take a break a little bit. But yeah, I'm good. I'm actually doing more Pokemon now than I've ever done in terms of actually buying and selling and being engaged in the non-content aspect of the hobby. Yeah, doing a lot of local shows, spending eBay. As far as hobby stuff, as far as life stuff, it's been a really nice summer. It started getting like rainy and cold here in Boston, so it's feeling like changing of the seasons a little bit. So not super happy about that, but it'll be all right. Summer was really nice. Was able to do some traveling. Yeah, things are generally good. Yeah, so thanks for having me on. As far as people finding me, like I'm probably gonna make periodic videos on. I have a channel, for those who don't know, called Pokenomics on YouTube, and a Pokenomics Instagram. You can always reach out to me on Instagram.
I'll put it down below as well so you can link to the channel in case you're not already subscribed, which you should be.
And I do have a Patreon, which I am still active in with Dan Catch 'em All Collectibles. You can find that sort of on his channel. He's been talking about that, I think.
Are you building out like an eBay store at all? Or are you still staying kind of low key with that, or
pretty low key? The majority of and so the majority of the stuff I do on eBay is sort of higher end, and I'm doing all eBay Vault for that. So and the majority will probably just be through Dan. I'll just say it's just straight up through consignment, so I just won't even have to deal with that. He'll front load the work, and then eBay will just do the work for him from
rich get richer, baby. Dan Catch 'em All Collectibles consignment service. Shout out.
Yeah, and it's such a good deal and good way to move the higher stuff, but yeah, the lower stuff and the middle stuff I'm sort of moving mostly myself. Yeah, mostly in person or to streamers. So, but
it's crazy how quickly the summer ended, right? Like you guys on the East Coast, Jake, you feel it a lot worse than we do on the West Coast here. But even old Giovanni down there, he gets it a lot worse than I do in California. Like when the summer ends,
dog. Like this is rain, like 9 months of the year. So it's every once in a while we'll get a summer that goes a little bit longer, but nah, like for the past 2 weeks, it's just been dumping.
I love the rain though. So as I say, like, don't you like the rain? At least you live up there, so you gotta like it.
Because you live in the sun. If you lived in the rain for 9 months a year and you were all depressed and stuck inside and everything's soaked 24/7, you'd be happy when you saw some sun. But
yeah, I'm thinking about doing a show and lugging my big cart of cards from the car to the show when it's raining, pouring rain, just in like the parking lot. If I had to do that like once a week, like I've been having to do every week here in California, I'd probably stop doing that too. So maybe I would sell a lot more on eBay if I lived in Washington as well. But living here in the beautiful blue skies of the state of California, I can't complain much. These live shows have been killing it. But But yeah, Jake, specifically speaking though of like, you know, Collectacon and live shows and stuff, one of the reasons I kind of wanted to have you on the channel here was because of just recently the Collectacon, Charlotte Collectacon just ended. And from all accounts, it was a smash. Like it was a smashing hit. Like everyone had a great time. I think there were a ton of people there. Like the most content creators were at that one that I've like ever seen. It was like Denver from last year, kind of, but it was like Charlotte this year. So that part has all been recounted quite extensively, I feel like, on many people's channels. But there was an aspect of Charlotte that not a ton of people got to see. But a part that was a little bit more invite only that happened at Rusty's house that I know that a bunch of people did get to go to. It was like the day or two before. And I was just curious kind of if you would maybe be willing to tell your experience going to that, because I know that Rusty TCA gaming is such like a pillar in the hobby that a lot of people, they really idolize kind of the whole estate that is Rusty TCA gaming, you know, and with the whole Dan, the meme of Dan on a four-wheeler riding around, I think the hobby just wants to know what goes on in that kind of situation. So I don't know if you were down to maybe just tell a little story about your Collecticon experience, the pre-Collecticon experience. You could even, if you wanted to, include the whole ride up, because I know you did a fun ride up with old school Pokemon and PK. So you could say a little bit about what happened with crazy shenanigans there. Because I know there must have been a crazy story that happened because there was a promised live stream drive stream. The promise never happened. So I'm sure that there was like some dinosaur in the road, a UFO came and abducted you guys, and then you had to like break your way out of a crazy alien ship and make your way back to Collectacon just in time to get to Rusty's. And that's probably why the live stream drive stream didn't happen. But I'll let you guys kind of, or you tell it your own way. But yeah, if you don't mind maybe talking a little bit on that, that would be a fun story to tell, I think. So I'll leave you to that.
Sure, yeah. Collecticon was great, as they've all been. Even the Orlando one where I was very sick, that was the hardest one for me to get through. But I know that one was great too, and people had a great time. So definitely highly recommend them. They're expensive, you know, if you don't vend, and if you don't sell a lot, even if you vend, they can be expensive. So be careful with that. And we can even go into that a little bit, you know, the numbers or whatever, if you guys want to get into the market stuff, but you know, doing stuff like that. But yeah, the drive, we survived the drive. It was the most fun 16-hour drive I've ever taken. Let me put it that way. It was still exhausting.
16 hours
on the way down. Yeah, we ran into traffic. So, but Nick and PK we talked the whole time and had a good time. And then yeah, Rusty's house was fun, really fun. Rusty and his wife and his family are lovely. They're very, very generous, wonderful hosts, very like kind and thoughtful and attentive when you're there. They plan, you know, food and some card stuff, and you know, plus it's just nice being with a bunch of your friends. And Rusty's place is very nice. He recently, I don't know if he wants, yeah, I won't go to details, but yeah, it's very nice. He's probably not that private about these things, but yeah, very, very lovely people. I do think there's yeah, Rusty is a great guy, and he's very approachable, as I think many people are in the hobby. People don't have big egos. Why should we? We sell Pokemon cards. Like it's a strange thing. So you know, the whole sort of like any sort of like idealizing or like, you know, being intimidated or ranking people of importance or these types of things, I think as long as it's done in a way that is I think it's one thing to how do I want to say this? I think it's nice to appreciate people, but I don't think it should be used to build walls between people in the community, if that's the way I would put it. And I think, yes, only so many people can go to Rusty's house because it will be overrun, but I'm sure Rusty would invite like everyone to his house if he could. And so
yeah,
I think
Rusty doesn't seem like the kind of guy who wouldn't. He seems. Let me put it more this way. Rusty seems like the kind of guy that you would meet him at the grocery store the day he was having over you know, Charlie, all these like pillars of the hobby. But if you met him at the grocery store and he saw you were buying a pack of Vivid Voltage or something, he'd be like, "Hey, we're having some people over for Pokemon at our house. You want to come over and come like hang out with us?" And he would treat you the exact same. So like by no means, I feel like Rusty is definitely like one of the more real down to earth people just from listening to him like
Sure.
on the YouTube, just how he goes about. Just the guy is just he's a hilarious individual, and I without even knowing him, I love him to death and I respect the guy. So yes, I will agree with that. So I was kind of joking about that aspect. But
I
yeah,
didn't mean to
yeah.
say it to you, but I just think it's a generally a good message to put out there for people. It's
Absolutely.
like we're all
Not enough
adults.
Japanese sellers at Rusty's house. It's all English. It's all English.
No, it's not. There. So
Really?
some
Well, there was
some
one. There was one
some
Japanese
big
seller.
Japanese sellers from Japan were there. Interestingly
Oh,
enough.
really? Who?
So his middleman, whose name is Brant, and I'm forgetting the guy's
Wait,
name.
wasn't the dude that runs like Card Secret there or
Yeah,
something?
that guy. Yeah, he was there. The
Okay.
Card Secret guy was there.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
I was just watched a video of someone who was at the convention, or not the convention, the pre-Rusty house thing, and it showed you everyone. I don't think I saw it. It was before you got there, Jake, because I didn't see you in the video, but I didn't finish the video either though. So, but I saw a couple Japanese sellers there. So surprised.
All right. We'll give it a pass. We'll give it a pass.
They're good people. And like it seems like Rusty has a good judge of character. It feels like so I did want to ask one thing though about the
I
place.
would say that like Pokemon are super cute, and so they tend to attract a lot of like pretty nice people. It's a lower percentage of like really bad people. Like
Dude,
yes,
yes.
there's a
Just
market and
yes.
money and
Absolutely.
competitiveness, but yeah,
Sports
and I
is so
think we have
different
to
from
give
Pokemon.
I think we have to give Pokemon and pop culture a little bit of a shout out too. But yeah, but for sure, and people who the people who make content and make big content for lots of people, like having an upbeat, positive message generally, and trying to preach those types of things, like all of that has an impact for sure.
There's more positivity in Pokemon than there is in something like Magic the Gathering. You know what I mean? Magic the Gathering is more realistic. Like if they don't like something, they're not gonna be like, guys, just give it a chance. They're gonna be like, we don't like this. This is why. We put together 69 reasons for why Wizards of the Coast is ruining our life for putting out this terrible product. A Pokemon person might be like, you know what? I'm gonna skip this product. It might be for you. It's not for me. I'm just gonna wait and buy some more of something I really like, and that's all they would say about it because that positivity outlook. So it definitely I've
It's less
noticed a difference.
dark, like Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh are way darker. Like even especially like Yu-Gi-Oh, the subject matter, the whole story is way darker and like people die, right? Like no one dies in Pokemon. Like even the Pokemon just faint or get tired or whatever. Like no one ever dies in Pokemon, but like Yu-Gi-Oh is very, very dark, especially the Japanese version. And the magic is, like witches and spells and beasts and all that sort of stuff. I feel like even when Pokemon goes dark, it's just like cool. It's like, ooh, I'm in middle school now. It's not like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna, be like some warlord or something like that. Like it never gets quite that far. So Jake's probably right as far as it being palatable to people that have more of a relaxed disposition maybe or something.
Dude, I was recently at a local show, and this to put this into perspective, and some 12-year-old was at the table next to me, and the table next to me was selling sports. The 12-year-old was trying to hustle the guy out of what he had behind the counter at the sports, and the 12-year-old was really good at it. I could tell. And so he was hovering over the counter. He had the slabs in his little container. The 12-year-old would point at a slab and say, would you do X amount on this slab? And the guy would look at it. He'd in his head kind of calculate out what that number is compared to what he had marked sticker price on it and be like, no, that's 50%, that's 60%. I gotta at least get 80% on it. And the kid would come back with, how about 70%? And then he would like haggle with him. And I watched this kid do this to that vendor and then go right behind him to the vendor and do the same thing to him. And I realized to myself, the kid was comping everything. And like when he came to my table, I was like, hey man, how you doing? He looked at my stuff. he looked at the Pokemon. He just like didn't bat an eye at it. He just like walked on. I was like, hey, what are you doing here? Like, what do you? He's like, oh, I resell, like, I collect sports. I resell it. I was like, okay, like, you have a favorite player? He's like, no, I just resell it. And he brought out his case and he brought it out. He's like, I have a reseller friend that a repacker friend, he said, that
Yes.
he buys anything at a good price for, he said, 70%, and he said he can sell it to his repacker for 80% and make his 10% margin as long as it's eBay last comps. And he said the guy takes it like just no matter what, as long as it's a good player and whatever. And so the kid's like, so I go to these every weekend and I just go around and I just take my 10%. And I was thinking to myself, this kid is hustling. I'm glad I'm not in sports. I would get cooked. I would get cooked by 12-year-olds if I was in sports. So I don't see that sort of mentality in Pokemon. You know, the kids are collecting their favorite Pokemon. It's more wholesome. So definitely a different type of, culture that's there. And I think there's some truth to what you said, Jake. It's just because it's Pokemon or something.
Did
But
this
I
kid
thought that
look
was
like
funny.
me? This is sounding like my long lost son or something like that. Just out here.
Yeah, shout out Cali Cards. He has
Oh,
an
it's not my son.
Instagram, and he literally, it looks like a professional Instagram, but a sports card reseller. And the kid is on there with his dad, and I mean, good for him. Like, he was hilarious. He goes to all the local shows around me. And so I asked another vendor after he left, the one who was hustling. I was like, "Do you know that kid?" He's like, "Oh yeah, that's such and such. He's at all these shows." I was like, what is this? This is crazy. Like, at 12 years old, I wasn't, but that kid impressed me. I laughed. I definitely told my fiance about that afterwards. I was like, you should have seen this kid. Like,
Yeah, I mean, all jokes aside, like it is cool to see kids learn markets to some extent, financial literacy, bartering, trading, all that sort of stuff, like some entry level business skills through like a hobby, whether it's sports or Pokemon or whatever. Like I don't know, that maybe I just wasn't in the area for that when I was a kid, but that didn't really exist. You know, I remember going to like a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament when I was a kid and there were card stores, but it just wasn't as prevalent. There weren't really those opportunities to be doing stuff like that. So it's cool when you watch these card show vlogs and you see, kids that are 8, 10, 12, 15 years old out here like hustling and stuff. Like that's cool to see. So, but before we get like way off track or whatever, back to Rusky, what was there anything specifically that, I mean, and I know like, private conversations and things like that, but was there anything specifically that stuck out to you, maybe that you learned, like a little piece from Charlie, Radar, anybody like that, or was it more just like fun hangout, or what did you come out of that experience with, if anything?
That I learned.
and what type of barbecue did Rusty serve? That's what I want to know.
We just sort of had fun. I don't think I don't know. I'm sure we talked some market stuff and some Pokemon stuff. I don't like really remember the specifics. One thing I learned is that there were some Evolving Skies ETBs that were, all of the Vs were taken out, so you can't pull any Vs. But they're loaded with rainbow rares and the VMAX alt arts. So I learned that. I didn't know that. So there's some of those
So
out there. So if
are
you
we
have
all
those,
in on Evolving Skies UTBs then? What are we doing? We getting
So
off this call right now? And
find those you have a very high Moonbreon pull rate.
did Rusty
gotcha.
say that? Like, where'd you learn that from? Because I have an anecdotal piece of fuel to add to that fire, I suppose, after.
Yeah,
But
we opened some.
okay, so you opened a bunch of ETBs and there was literally no Vs, but there were only rainbows and alternate arts.
Yeah, firsthand. I believe it was ETBs. Yeah.
So
So
I had a stream right after the big reprint of Evolving Skies ETBs that happened the last time through, that distributors got. The last big ETB dump that was given to distributors, not MJ Holdings. Those ones I purchased to sell on my Whatnot stream because that was so long ago. I was still selling on Whatnot. And I was running bounties that stream for alternate arts. And I ran VMAX alt art bounties. And That night, I hit 6 bounties. All of my packs were from those ETBs, and they were all VMAX Leafeons. I have it on my Instagram. 3 of them were VMAX Leafeons, 2 Rayquaza VMAXs, 1 Moonbryon VMAX, and then like some other random V alternate arts and stuff. But I don't remember very many other Vs getting hit, and I just remember being like, "Oh, another one, another one." So, and they were all ETBs. So, ironically, I wonder if that's an anecdotal. I wonder if Rusty got those ETBs, which he must have, from the last dump that distributors got of ETBs, because he's obviously not going around to like Walmart's buying a bunch of ETBs loose and putting them into his big old storage bins. He most likely got them from his distributor and just hasn't sold through them. So I bet those are the same ones I got. So that's crazy. Anecdotally, I can say that I go back, anyone who's watching, if you were on my whatnot, you remember that, I'm sure, because I posted a bunch like, I pulled 3 in one stream of this one VMAX Leafeon. How is this possible? But that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, we pulled a bunch. I forget how many, but it was.
So is that what all the whole weekend was just ripping ETBs, Evolving Skies? So like on Friday or Thursday, you pulled up to Rusty's and you got out of the car and he immediately handed you a bin full of ETBs. He's like, "All right, get to ripping, Jake." And you saw Charlie in there. His hands are bleeding in the corner, Charlie Herblocker, as he's ripping Evolving Skies packs, and Rattle's in there ripping Evolving Skies packs. And
So the second night, John and I actually radar, and I degenerately ripped through half a box of limited lost episodes Dragon Ball Z score, which was fun.
How'd that go?
Any ultra rares or?
No, he pulled a God pack though, which was cool, which is all hollows. So it was fun, but it was yeah, and degeneracy for sure.
That was radar induced, wasn't it?
I brought it for us to open.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Never mind. Because I've met John a couple times in person, but I haven't spent like extensive time with him. But I know from his content that the man likes to rip product, not necessarily always responsibly so. So I have a feeling that may have had something to do with it.
He's not afraid to open the expensive packs.
When you pull the God packs, are all the foils alt foil, or is it the regular like flat foiling? Or I didn't even know they had God packs in score.
I'm trying to remember for the Lost Episode set. So the other sets, they have like a distinct flat foiling versus alt foiling, but for the Lost Episode set, I feel like it's all the same foiling, I want to say, almost.
Okay.
I haven't looked at them in a while. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I can't remember ever seeing flat foil for Lost Episodes. But the thing about scores is score has a lot of like weird stuff and error stuff, and that was a super low printed product. The Lost Episodes was the last GT. So yeah, any GT fans in the score GT, the most, John and I were joking that we're like 2 of the only 30 people probably on planet Earth who appreciate what we're doing right now. We're 2 of the 30 idiots who like value these packs at like $200 a pop.
What are those? Are those from that set or what?
Yeah, these are couple, it's probably not going to show up, but it's a couple ultra rares. I pulled out like all the gradable stuff for Dan, so I have to send a bunch of stuff off to BGS, but there was not a lot of lost episodes, but there was a pretty good amount of ultra rares, and it was crazy. Like when he sent me the box, like I was just going through it, and I think he like pre-sorted pretty decently, but there was like GKI ultra rares that like weren't even sleeved. They were just sitting in the box, and I'm just like, geez, dude, he's gonna do really well on that like non-Pokemon collection for sure. There's a lot of whoever that collector was that he initially like got all this stuff from, like that dude is the go. Like, I mean, he had everything from like the most rare. There's a Bandai Dragon Ball Z CCG that came out around the same time that Bandai did the Naruto stuff, and I pulled the cards out because I thought they looked really cool. and I hadn't really seen them a lot before, and I started doing research on them, and they were dummy rare, like so rare. A lot of the boxes aren't even listed. The ones that are listed crazy high prices. Pops are stupid low. The arts are really cool. Short run game, didn't have the same success as Naruto. It's just nuts, man. Like, I mean, that guy had every dead TCG, had like all the chase cards. It's just like what a collector, dude. That guy, whoever that guy was, I didn't even really look at the Pokemon, but all the dead niche TCG stuff, that guy was a monster. So shouts out to whoever that guy was.
There, collectors like that are really rare. I feel like there's a lot of collectors that collect specific things, but not a lot of collectors collect literally everything, all of it, but they do exist. So that
Well,
guy,
back then it was probably like way cheap. I mean, like the dead, especially the dead TCG stuff, like back then it probably had like no value or like was super
well, he was
easy
probably
to
buying it as
acquire.
it came out. Honestly, he probably bought everything as it released and was really, really into it as everything was coming out and just kept up with it and didn't care about value, like you said. I'm sure a lot of it did tank before now what it's doing at this point, but I'm
Yeah,
sure
I
he
mean, he
paid a
was
lot more for it then than what he got out of it at the end. You know what I mean?
for sure. I mean, he was definitely opening the score because there was a lot of bulk, a lot of like non-foil bulk in there. So I'm sure he was opening those packs or booster boxes or whatever. But just cool to go through collections and see what people have and just be like, wow, like this stuff was lost lost to time. And yeah, it's
Well,
nuts, man.
someone like that, Gary King Pokemon, was at Rusty's house with you. And so like when I think of someone who just literally in the time of that just bought everything and collected everything and just bought it when it was worth nothing, I think of Gary King Pokemon and probably one of his storages that he has up here near me in Northern California full of that old Naruto and old whatever Dragon Ball and the stuff that he hasn't quite dug out because it's not Pokemon yet. So it's I do think that there are more of those people, but bringing it back though, bringing it back to Rusty's place here, bringing it to Gary, what was it like hanging out with the king Pokemon himself there? Did he have some fun stories to tell while he was there? I saw some pictures and stuff with him with the crew and everything, but how was that?
Great. So it's always nice to see Gary. I get a chance to catch up with him at every Collectacon. So he's looking great. If he's watching this, he last time I saw him, he was in a wheelchair for a while. He
Yeah.
had hurt himself, but he's back healthy and I think has good energy and seems like he's loving going to all of the Collecticons, and he does other shows too. I think he gets invited to different things. So it's fun seeing him, out at these shows.
He looked like he lost a lot of weight too at Long Beach. He looks a lot healthier for sure. So that's nice to see. I was gonna
Yep.
ask you too, like, because you do a lot of different stuff. Like, how do you stay focused? How do you not? Because I mean, there's just so many cool, unique niche rabbit holes, things to research and get into. How do you stay focused and not get overwhelmed or not FOMO, especially with some of like the rare, maybe more like niche dead TCG stuff where a lot wasn't produced. It doesn't come up for sale a lot. It's hard to find in good condition. How do you keep yourself focused and not kind of like pull your hair out thinking you need to have like everything at once?
So as a collector, the only FOMO comes from a fear of like other people will discover this or something, and there's very little of it, and it could explode in value, which is similar to actually like the investor sort of mindset or perspective of like, here's something that could really exponentially explode in value if just a few people started talking about it and it started going. So first I start by just trying to I try to learn about everything as much as I possibly can. So I want to know what's out there. I want to, I a few years ago, right as Pokemon was like really starting to boom and Logan Paul jumped in, I did some Google searching and I just looked up like all the biggest IPs in the world, and I picked the ones that I really liked and that I thought were the biggest and the strongest. And then I did research for months to figure out what cards were available for all of these things, what collectibles and what other collectibles were available. And then I started kind of systematically buying things across all these categories, the stuff that felt the rarest, the coolest, the most important in terms of the history, the time that it was put out. And that's worked extremely well, both from as a collector and an investor. You know, I have a ton of Disney stuff that's with Lorcana now doing really getting a lot more interest. Now when I bring it to conventions, people are buying the vintage stuff, you know, all sorts of things. There's all sorts of new people coming in. So one thing I always say is that you don't know when something is going to pop, and you don't know if something's going to pop, but there's always a potential when you buy something that's very rare and has what I would argue is like sort of intrinsically cool properties to it. Like it's a very popular character IP. It maybe was released the same year, the same time as that character was released into the world. It has some sort of historic tie, some sort of story that's cool, and it's like super cheap, really mainly maybe because no one ever talks about it, nobody knows about it. Those are the types of items and things that have potential, and they could pop 40 years from now, 50 years from now, 70 years from now. You just never know. Now, there's no guarantee. Cards could be totally uninteresting to people in 20, 30, 40 years. And so, you know what I mean? So you never know with these types of things, but that's the mindset. And to go to your question of like how I manage all of it, I flip and resell liquid stuff. So the flipping and the reselling, which is the majority of like the money that I'm constantly bringing in, I do 95%, if not more, Pokemon, because Pokemon is the most liquid. It's the most people want it. I can sell it at that margin, you know, to that kid who you were talking about. You know, that's my mindset, right? Like, you know, it's margin, liquidity. How many times can I turn it? And then I search occasionally. So first of all, I already, if we want to use stock terminology, which is not the best, but like I've already built a position in a lot of things that I think are undervalued out there over years, and will probably continue to over time. You know, and it doesn't take up that much time. You know, most of my time is focused on to make money on the reselling sort of parts of the business. As far as collecting, Pokemon are collecting things that feel maybe expensive or appropriately priced or whatever. That stuff I feel absolutely no FOMO towards. And I view it as like if I want them in 5, 10, 15 years, which I think I will, because I really enjoy this stuff, but you never really know. Like, you have time to collect this stuff. You have time to enjoy it. Like, ultimately, are you having fun? If you're having fun, you know, you're doing a good job collecting. You know, collecting's about fun. If you're driving yourself crazy with FOMO, and to your question again, Retro, like you're doing too many things, and you're spending too much money, and you're not enjoying any of it because it's just too sporadic, like you should probably cut it down. You know, why are you doing that to yourself? I would say then maybe focus in on the stuff that feels really rare, really hard to find, that could really explode if people knew about it. You know, focusing on that stuff as far as the urgency. And then on the stuff that's out there that every person knows about, you know, that stuff, it could go up quite a bit, but it's less likely to really crazily explode exponentially. And there's probably a lot of it out there, and there's probably going to be periods, well, almost certainly going to be periods of dead periods in the Pokemon hobby and other hobbies where you'll be able to get certain eras, certain generations for like really cheap. You know, the question is like, do you have the patience for that, or do you want it now? So, which is totally fine, because I think there's two different things, right? And this is why I would always push against sort of that, like, are you investing, or are you like entertaining yourself with Pokemon cards, and are you willing to like overspend from a financial perspective? But you're not really overspending. You're entertaining yourself. You're having fun by opening packs. You're having fun by buying that $30-$40 slab, you know, versus the I need to buy it now because it might go up, and you know, that sort of energy. That energy is mostly not appropriate for anything Pokemon, in my opinion. I think that energy is going to cause you to make bad decisions. That's my personal opinion, and has been sort of since the boom of Pokemon. Generally speaking, outside of maybe some very niche trophy type items and maybe some very like low pop, stuff. We're gonna see over time some of these like middle era Japanese sets, some of these middle era English, some X and Y, some even in 10 years from now, there might be sets. We're going to see some things over a long period of time remain, if Pokemon is popular, remain relevant, not have been printed that much, or have extremely difficult to grade issues that might become quite scarce over time. But so much is not going to be scarce.
Really quick, like to the point on the investing, like you're not really factoring in liquidity at the time you're choosing to sort of build, because your time horizon is more long dated. Is that correct? Or how much are you factoring in, I guess, liquidity when you are like looking to get into some of this, maybe more niche stuff, dead TCGs, or just, anything outside of Pokemon, I guess?
Well, you have to be able to sell it in order for it to make money. So, it only goes up in value if there are people out there willing to pay. So obviously there has to be some liquidity. I think, like everything, the obvious answer is that the less liquid something is, the more of a return you need to make on it to make that worth it, because it's going to take you a long time to sell. You're not gonna be able to just sell it when you want that money, when you need that money. And you're not going to want to ever put your like rolling business capital into like things that might have to sit there for a really long time. So if I have $100,000 that I'm constantly rolling through collections and grading fees, just theoretically, whatever, I'm not going to be investing with that money. Now, people define investing in lots of different ways. This is how I'm defining this is how I talk about investing, right? People could say flipping's investing, it's short-term investing or day trading, whatever, right? Yeah. And I want to buy stuff too that I think is really cool, because I'm also collecting. Like the benefit of doing that too is like I'm collecting it, and if it never goes up in value, I'll be perfectly happy having this cool kind of unique collection that I think's interesting, that was fun to build. And I'm buying it at price points that if it doesn't go up in value, I'm cool with it. So I'm not buying $50,000 super niche items that I'm hoping are going to go to 500,000, and they might. Like there are items out there that have sold that could do that. I tend not to do that so much. But everyone sort of has their own like risk tolerance, and obviously like how much just like money you have is a big part of like what makes something risky or not.
I have a question for both of you guys. This conversation sort of brought it on. I guess first for you, Nick. Nick, do you consider yourself bullish on Pokemon, or do you consider yourself bullish on TCGs in general, trading card games, or do you consider yourself bullish on just pop culture, or all of the above, none of the above, or what combination would you consider?
I mean, I'm always bullish on pop culture because that's, it's kind of in the name, right? It's pop culture, popular culture. Like it's always, different, our grandparents obviously were into different performers and singers and Elvis and things like that than we might be. But especially with social media now, like it's so easy to just digest, Taylor Swift, like anything that's popular. It's very difficult to not be exposed to what's popular, to where even like when we were kids, I mean, you had TV commercials and stuff like that, but there was no like Discord servers for Collectacons and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like you had to get your mom to like drive you to the card store or buy you a pack at Target or something like that. Like the dynamic of interacting with TCGs and just like collectibles hobbies in general was so much different when we were younger. And now with social media and just technology in general, events that people are putting on, um, online places for people to connect and create communities, it's just exponentially grown. And I think that people are always going to crave that. And because I'm not like a collector really, it is the thing that's tough for me is it's tough for me to wrap my head around. And I made a video about it kind of like a couple weeks ago or whatever. Like it's tough for me to wrap my head around the idea that people are going to continue spending discretionary income in perpetuity on items that intrinsically are worthless. Like, I'm not trying to say this stuff's worthless, but it's like it holds no productive value outside of like giving you joy or something like that. And that's okay. Like, I'm not trying to hate on people for that or anything like that at all. And there are certain people obviously that are going to invest and buy, you know, good cards, sealed product, whatever, and do well financially with that. But I'm always like thinking this is just too good to be true. Like, when is this gonna slow down? When is this gonna fall out? Like, the bigger my business gets, because, you know, I'm taking more risk, more inventory, things like that. Like, I'm always just like, man, like, you got to hedge your bets here. You got to take money off the table, things like that. But when I take a step back and look at it, it's not stopping. And like 151 has brought so many people back into the hobby. Like 151 has probably been the best selling modern set for me out of anything ever. Like, the volume is just absolutely insane. The premiums are really good. And it's brought a lot of people back into the hobby. I mean, even outside of Pokemon spaces, you talk to people and they're like, yeah, I've heard about Pokemon 151. Like, that makes me want to start collecting again. And I think that in our sort of like investing market space, it's tough for us to kind of pull back and think what a regular person is interacting with. But Pokemon as a company is doing its job of promoting Pokemon as a brand to people that are like normies, I guess you would say, like people that aren't maybe like as deep down the rabbit holes as we are. And that's something important to remember. Like, they want their business to continue to be strong into the future. And I think that they're doing a pretty good job of that. When I look at like some of the other TCGs, it's tough because the dynamics are different, right? Like Pokemon is just so much. I mean, even Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, now that Takahashi is dead, like, I worry about Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, I was bullish on a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff for a long time, and I think that because it is one of the big three, that if cards stay strong for a while, that there is a lot of stuff in Yu-Gi-Oh! That could see some pretty decent price appreciation. But again, like, Konami is a company, right? And Pokemon is a conglomerate of so many different artists, so many different people coming up with a story, things like that. Whereas like Takahashi, like, wrote the manga, created a lot of the characters, things like that. So now, not having him as sort of like the creative, you know, CEO, focal piece, whatever you want to call it, like, that worries me. Magic doesn't really have an IP attached to it, so it's like pretty much just running off playability. And now they're sort of doing like the collabs with all these other big brands. So I don't know. Like, I want to be positive, but I'm cautious. I'm cautiously optimistic. So I guess that's what I would say. What about you, Jake?
What was the question? Are we bullish?
Yeah, what are you bullish specifically on? Are you bullish on TCGs in general? Are you bullish on Pokemon as an IP? Or are you in general, or are you bullish just on like pop culture? Or maybe a combination of three, none of them, or what's your take on that?
So my perspective, and you know, when I was actively making YouTube videos, my sense of a lot of the discourse and the conversation and a lot of what I was hearing from people, I think people are, for the most part, way overconfident in their own opinions and abilities to predict these markets. And in the short term, but particularly the long term. And so the way I manage that is I need to be really confident about something, and I need to have a really high upside in order for it to like make sense from like an investment perspective. From a speculative perspective, which is what the vast majority of people here I think are actually doing, it's fun. And we don't know where it's going to go. And there's a pretty decent chance, if you do it smartly, that you're at least going to have fun, that there's probably a good chance it's going to last, hopefully a bit, a bit longer, at least quite a bit longer, hopefully. And maybe it'll last a long time, but there'll be ups and downs throughout it, whatever, whichever one of those three things it is, and it could be each of them. I think it's just about understanding what you can really know as a human being and what you can't. I mean, not only is this a non-productive asset, as Retro was saying, basically meaning that I do think we shouldn't. So, and you said it in your own answer, Retro, pop culture is a human desire to have entertainment and fun and joy once our basic needs are met. And because so many people in the world, their basic needs are met and we have extra money, it's not just water and food and shelter that have value. So if we were in that sort of world, that's what would have value, right? That's the only thing that would really have value. But because we don't live in a world like that, it's not irrational at all to say, wow, look at entertainment business. Look how much money flows into all sorts of different entertainment, including this, right? And so with all of these things, with all of these companies that have come into the space, with all of these shows that are starting up that provide more fun, you know, something that I've talked about for years, right? The social media. How can social media make this way more long lasting than it would have been it previously? You know, maybe 20, 30 years of fad like this wouldn't have, because it would have been mostly word of mouth and like television, like we would have seen like a few news articles. Maybe it wouldn't have had the staying power that this could possibly have. Maybe all these channels and Discord groups and friendships can keep it going and encourage other people to come in long enough. But at the end of the day, it's a zero-sum game. In order for prices to go up, there needs to be more and more people and more money, not just the same people here. So it's an uphill battle to say prices go up forever or prices go up, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years on everything, always just let things sit in a closet over time. It's an uphill mathematical battle. And in like my Patreon, I've gone into, okay, how much do we think they printed? How many of each of these hits do we think are out there? What will it look like if they print the exact same sets with the exact same amount over the next 10, 20 years? How much more money will need to be in the hobby in order to sustain all the values of all these things? Like trying to have at least some sort of mathematical sense of like what it's going to take to sustain this type of growth. Most people are just sort of like, well, price goes up. Okay, price will continue to go up. They're tracking a chart of this goes up, and so then it's going to keep going up without any understanding of what the underlying thing you are putting your money into and what the competition is going to look like in the future for that item with many, many more booster boxes, many, many more sets, potentially many other TCGs, CCGs, et cetera, et cetera. That's why it's so speculative. Even if you do the math and you have that sort of idea, we still have no idea how much Pokemon's going to print in the future. For example, Pokemon could all of a sudden pull back the reins on printing if we see a downshift in demand, but still keep things pretty thriving and pretty good, even if it's smaller. So like, there's a lot of things, just sort of like the Fed and their hammer. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done from the Pokemon company that we can't control that could, you know, and from other companies, eBay, you know, different auction houses, different streaming platforms to like keep things going. So am I bullish or bearish? It depends who I'm talking to. Like relative to some people, I'm definitely bearish. I think they're nuts. You know, relative to other people, I'm bullish. I mean, people, you know, I'm relative to 99.9% of probably humans, I'm bullish because 99.9% of people would be like, why are you putting any money into these things? How could anyone pay $1 or $10? You know what I mean? So it's having that sort of understanding. Now, within the Pokemon community, am I more bearish or bullish? I don't know. I mean, most people would say I'm more bearish. It's probably true.
I
I
think
would
you're
argue you're one of the
underlying.
largest bulls in the hobby, actually.
I think you were always like, I don't know, even during the boom, like I would say like you were cautious, but it seemed like your underlying thesis was kind of always positive, but cautious. And I
I would
think
say
people,
bullish for sure, and maybe the message is more that people should be maybe cautious before becoming as bullish as you are, sort of thing.
yeah,
Because
I mean it's like telling somebody that has no financial literacy. It's like telling someone, yo, like you need to have your money working for you. You need to have like a diversified portfolio, but also saying like don't buy the top. That doesn't mean that you're bearish on the stock market or investing in assets. It just means, you know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of people maybe took the okay, well don't buy right now or like these prices are nuts as bearishness, but in reality that was more like caution, don't buy the top. Maybe I'm misunderstanding or misrepresenting your argument, but that's kind of how I always took it, was that you were just trying to keep people from, you know, buying while things were going nuts, but that overall you still really like this stuff, thought it would do well over time, thought it was really popular.
Yeah, because I would certainly never paint you as being not bullish on Pokemon. Though, from what you said, compared to other people, I could say you would be maybe considered a little more bearish comparatively. But, you know, comparing to other people, I've found in life, as I'm sure you'd agree, it's never good to compare. So, you know, in
I,
that
I think
regard, I still can see overall probably bullish on Pokemon, most likely.
I think where my emotion always has come in is sort of like what I view as arrogance or the ego of people who haven't done this that long, don't know what's going to happen, confidently predicting and telling other people what's going to happen.
And in
Makes me
2020, that's what happened.
makes me
Everyone came in.
just
Like,
just
you
makes me extremely uncomfortable.
yeah.
Now, people sharing their opinions like a dude and being humble about it and saying, I think this is going to happen is fun. And that's to me, the middle ground is like, it's not like we should, everyone needs to be quiet and can't share their opinions. It's like, if you think things are going to moon, go ahead. But it was this sort of like, I'm an
Confidence.
expert with it's like, and listen to me. And listen, I think a lot of people, anyway, I think that there's a lot of people, I don't know. I'm trying my best not to
Shout out to Pokenav. He got a lot of heat when he was on YouTube for being overly bullish on a lot of Pokemon stuff. And I
Leave
think
Pokinav alone, man.
that's what I'm saying. He got a lot of heat when he was overly bullish at a time when nobody really knew about the future. But I think that a lot of the stuff he was overly bullish on now is actually probably would have been good advice at the time had his followers listen. But a lot of people at the time didn't know who were in it. So he got a little flack. So, you know, shout out to
I
the
think
guy for
the sealed maybe, but the slabs probably
well,
not so
okay. And
much.
that was
Like
one of the questions that I did want to ask Jake as a sort of a finishing off question was about slabs, because this is something that I've seen personally, anecdotally in my
I do have
experience.
to run. I apologize. I do have to run right after this.
Yeah, yeah. And I figured this would be sort of the last and the short answer, if any. But I've noted in my recent experience, just maybe it's just because I'm vending a lot more in person and I'm not selling on eBay as much, but in my personal experience, the slab sales and interest in slabs in general have been sort of down a little bit. Like it wasn't like it was in the hype where everyone's like, grade everything in any grade, you know, gets a premium. It's like nines go for under raw now, and you know, and it's just kind of like not the demand that it once was. I was curious if either of you guys specifically, since you gotta go soon, Jake, you first, but then I want to hear your take on this because I know you sell a lot on eBay too. But have you seen any downturn in like slab like interest, or you think it's the exact same and I've just been seeing a different market? Because for me, I've seen an insane level of downtick in interest in slabs. Like the last Collectacon, hardly sold any slabs compared to raw and everything else I sold. So
Yeah. Let me think. So let's see. So it's something that has happened before. Like there are these cycles where like, and it really, I think it's also kind of separating different parts of the market, because I would say like the 10 premiums that like some modern are getting are still like amazing. So a bit for how easy the card is to grade, right? So there are areas of the market where I would say like, and we were talking about this before we went live, I've stopped grading like large areas of the market because I'm selling the raw stuff so well, and the premiums I'm getting for the 10s and the 9s versus the risk of how difficult it is to get that isn't there. But my low end and my middle end modern is really good still, slabs. You know, I would say raw is great. Everything sells really well, you know, in person at these things. When I say that overall, I feel like the interest has decreased in it. I don't know. I think the market has expanded. I think there's probably a lot more people interested, like who continue to kind of come in and start collecting, and I don't think they're jumping to slabs. Why that is, you know, as much as maybe they were before. Why that is, hopefully because there's less BS investing advice going on. And to be honest, most of the BS investing advice is all about sealed, which is why that, you know, so hopefully that's part of it, that people who they're not getting that sort of, so they're being more cautious. I think there's all this sort of negativity, coming, around slabs, around the grading card companies, around people, grading card companies changing their stuff, around the inconsistencies, grading fakes, people buying a lot of those graded slabs, like vintage graded slabs, middle era graded slabs, and like sun and moon graded slabs, and then having them fall a lot in price. Like, I think there's just been a lot of negative stuff. Like everything, though, everything has value and is enjoyable. It all depends on the price point. So I think these things have good corrections. I think anyone who thinks in terms of like sealed good, slabs bad, or slabs good, raw bad, or whatever, isn't actually thinking in terms of money, because money is just margin. It's just the price that you're buying it at versus what you think it'll be in the future. And everything has potential depending on what price you can buy in it, pretty much everything. But I guess right now, with easy to grade cards, they're selling surprisingly well, I would say. With harder to grade stuff, I think there's some more potential. But so for me, the flipper reseller side, right, of me is the buying the stuff I can liquidate. I tend to go more with the market trends, right? The more investor collector side of me tends to go opposite the market trends, because I sort of see value in everything. So maybe I'm looking for a little bit more opportunity and really hard to grade, certain things if I can get it at a really good auction, that because maybe grading's a little soft. Like, that's how I would view this. But since the boom in Pokemon, I haven't viewed anything in Pokemon as, outside of maybe the World's promos, which I was like pretty, talked about and was buying, as like oddly undervalued. I mean, it's an expensive hobby.
They still kind of are, especially like the English, like the stamped ones versus the Japanese. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I love Japanese, but I'm over here looking at like, quarter finalists, top 32, top 16s, and they're selling for less in 10, way harder to grade, way less of them than like their Japanese counterparts that come straight out of the pack. There could be more demand just for the Japanese, with the Chinese market, Japanese buyers, but I'm surprised like a lot of that stuff is still so cheap too. I mean, I know it's come up a little bit, especially post boom, but yeah, it still seems like a decent value relative to the other options, but I don't know.
Yeah, so for me, like, for a long time, it was sort of like those types of trophy stuffs, and then Sun and Moon, because Sun and Moon were the only cards that were cheaper than they were before the boom. Things like Hidden Fates, things like these graded cards, a year ago, you could actually get them cheaper than before the boom, whereas vintage was still 4 or 5 times the value of it was before the boom. So I was hedging, we could say, maybe Pokemon continues to do really well, so I'm going to buy a ton of the Sun and Moon alt arts, a ton of the Sun and Moon rainbow rares, a ton of these types of things. Now that those have become really popular, I am selling them. I don't know if they're going to continue to go up. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's just to give people a little window. That's how I hedge, because I don't know what's going to happen in Pokemon. So I'm going to sell the stuff that I feel like is hot, and I'm going to buy the stuff that feels like it's under, as long as I feel like Pokemon isn't overall too crazy. And my honest response, like, if you really were to ask me, do I think Pokemon's like too crazy right now at this point, would be, I don't know, and it would make me anxious. It would make me anxious to call anything an investment, because I think we just don't know enough. I think it's too risky to put that type. I don't think we have enough information. So if you're going to do anything from a financial perspective in this, I would focus on either reselling at margin or stuff that seems really relatively undervalued versus other things. Like, we can talk about those Worlds promos. Okay, those seem really relatively cheap compared to these other types of things, but they're still very expensive. There's still tons of risk in them. We don't know how Pokemon's going to do overall. We don't know if that niche is going to ever get popular. It's why you should diversify and spread out from a financial perspective. But the last message I'll leave you is just like, have fun, collect. I know I talk a lot about money because that's like what the thing is, but like, it's hilarious. It's amazing that like us adults get to just like talk about like this stuff and get to like make money off of like fun card stuff. So, don't let the heated debates and the arguments and the opinions, you know, impact your joy of all that stuff. So anyway, thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah,
Thank you,
dude, thanks
Jake.
for
I
coming on.
appreciate you. Yeah, and
So
we'll do more of this on the channel too, because Jake is a good friend of the channel, and it's one of the things that I've been meaning to have him on more. So we're gonna have a part 2, part 3 probably at some point, but you know, I will do some more of these talks. But Jake, thanks again. Appreciate you for your time. We'll let you go, and me and Retro will close it out here and finish the talk up. I had a couple things I wanted to ask Nick about here, so we have some things to talk about.
happy to come on. Was fun talking market stuff with you guys, and yeah, feel free to reach out anytime.
Yeah, and I guess we'll see you at Card Party at the very, or I'll see you at Card Party at the very least next year. So, till then.
All right, man. Have a good day.
So yeah, I'm happy Jake was able to come on for that conversation, because neither you nor I were able to go to Charlotte Collectacon to go to the whole Rusty situation. I don't think I would have probably gotten an invite. Not that he wouldn't have invited me or anything. It's just that I don't know Rusty, and you know, we don't interact like that. So it's cool to hear kind of what went down a little bit behind the scenes. I'm still gonna have to do a little more recon as far as like, besides just ripping Evolving Skies packs until his hands bled, what else they were doing while they were there. I think there was some tractor riding. There was some
I'm
like,
sure there was some good conversations. If anything, like I don't know, like I'd be interested to just hear, and I know like a lot of it is private because I'm sure people are sharing numbers and things like that. But I'm always interested to hear what people are doing in their business and things like that. Not necessarily to copy people, but just to see how other people have had success scaling and things like that. Really quick though, before talk about the graded stuff. I wanted to say too, back to the point that we were talking about, like you're asking, just bullish on TCGs, bullish on Pokemon. The one thing I will say too that doesn't really get talked about as much anymore. I feel it was a lot during the boom because, you know, MetaZoo was just coming out. And so people were like talking about other TCGs. But I mean, dude, over the past couple of years, we've seen so many new card games come out. And I see them all the time on Instagram or at these collecticons and things like that. And I know it's an uphill battle, but I'm sure they're making some money. And I look at like all these Kickstarter TCGs, all these even just smaller TCGs, like your My Hero Academia and things like that. And I just think I like to believe that Pokemon is the most well insulated. Like there's got to be millions and millions and millions of dollars tied up in all this other stuff, and not just the other TCGs, but like grading too, right? Every Collectacon we go to, we see stuff like Diamond Service grading and all these companies, and I'm just like, man, like there are plenty of options for grading companies. So I'd like to think that companies like PSA, CGC, BGS are well insulated to where if things slowed down, these other companies would, I don't want to say die, but like fail, or maybe the business wouldn't really make sense anymore. And so then that money coming out of the hobby, I feel like it would directly come out of those like lower hanging fruit. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm looking at Pokemon and I'm like, dude, if we go through like a bear market of cards, I can see 10 TCGs dying before Pokemon. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just where my mind's at. Maybe that's
yes.
overconfidence in Pokemon, but I don't know. What do you think?
So I recently was in a Discord conversation, and it was speaking directly on comparing Pokemon with one of those newer TCGs. And Pokemon, the Scarlet and Violet era, has been admittedly going through a really rough patch. Obviously, the sales are still fine for Pokemon Company International. They can push through it, they're selling. But margins for secondary sales on the secondary market are pretty bad. And so, on the other hand, a card game that's booming right now, like One Piece, for example, hasn't had a bad set in the first like 3 or 4 sets. Every single one is like going up in price. They're all bangers. and it's a brand new bulging market that's like huge, like, and more people are getting into it every day, it seems like, because the YouTube, or I mean the Netflix show, the manga is kind of finishing up, and the anime is kind of having its moment right now. So
I just put out a One Piece video this morning.
you
Go
see, even you're on it. I think I saw that. I didn't watch the video yet, but I saw you put it out this morning. So even you're on the One Piece train. So it's like One Piece right now is having a moment. So in the Discord, a gentleman was making a comparison, saying that One Piece was better. I don't know if he used the exact word better. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it's basically saying that it was a superior game right now to Pokemon, and it was outdoing Pokemon in every way with their secret rares, the print quality, the demand, the game, all this stuff. And while I think that his argument was basically true by the numbers, just looking at the first four sets of One Piece, comparing it to the last four sets of Pokemon, one of the things that wasn't factored in was the literal consistency that Pokemon has had. We just had our 25th anniversary. So like that's 25 years of making a TCG every few months, releasing a new set. Even when things are bad, Pokemon kept making the game and kept it up in Black and White era, in Diamond and Pearl era. They were still doing it. Like, I wonder that if in 10 sets from now, if One Piece isn't having its moment in pop culture, if trading card games go out of style and we go through a bear market like you're talking about, One Piece is a huge IP. It's gigantic. It's one of the largest mangas, in the whole of Japan. I think it's not as big as Dragon Ball Z, but or maybe it is. It could be. I think it might be bigger, right?
I think it's actually like the biggest anime in the world. I know.
Yeah, that's what I think. I'm wrong. I think you might be right. I think it is the biggest, because so One Piece has obviously a large IP behind it. But that being said, they don't have 25 years of consistently making a trading card game, the ups and downs that go with that. How many times have they had to rebalance their entire meta? How many times have they had to ban cards and then unban them and then literally create cards to counteract other cards that ruin your whole game process? Like
I
Pokemon's gone
also
through that, Magic's gone through that. My question is to One Piece, or anyone who's going to try to say. And so anyway, the argument that we were having in the Discord went like this: One Piece is superior because it's more money. They're doing a better job with these first few sets, and it's just overall a better product right now. And I couldn't say that he was wrong, other than saying yes, but there's one thing that One Piece doesn't have that Pokemon does, and it's that consistency, that literal lockdown consistency of 25 years of literally doing the same thing over and over and doing it to their best ability and getting it better and better over time. That gives me the confidence to say what you just said, Retro, that when we do go through a bear market, that it's not going to just drop off and stop making sets until we come through until we need, I need a revival. We're going through a bear market. We better revive Pokemon TCG again. Shout out to Dragon Ball. That's what they do. They just revive their TCG every 10 years or so.
relax, bro. Keep my wife's name out your mouth.
I'm
Not
just
like
saying, you
okay,
gotta
really
be
quick though.
consistent.
Really quick, 2 points. One, to say like One Piece is better, like, dude, if you, even with Scarlet and Violet not being as popular, if you compare the market cap of Scarlet and Violet to One Piece, it dwarfs it. So booster boxes being more expensive and they're not higher in demand, there's just less supply relative to demand than there is in Pokemon. Like, Pokemon is still way outselling One Piece by far.
I
Like
think the
that
gentleman's
so
argument was more nuanced than that. I think I oversimplified it. So not to put any words in his mouth or anything, but I think I did oversimplify it just a little bit, just so that we're clear
all
on
right.
that.
Yeah, fair enough. But and then the other thing I would say too is like, and admittedly, I don't really know much about like the playability or the history or things like that. But I feel like Pokemon overall as a company, just from what I've seen, even with like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic and stuff, Pokemon hasn't really ever done anything to piss people off the same way that like Magic has or Yu-Gi-Oh! Has. They might like change stuff in playability or
Wait
reprint
until
stuff.
this $400 box comes out, Nick. You just wait. Wait till
So
this
okay, so
November.
I like it's funny to me because as soon like I had no idea why people were complaining about that. It is so funny to me that people are like making, oh my god, a $400,
It's
oh my
because they
goodness
wanted
gracious.
it, but they
It's
can't
it's
afford
so
it, Nick. That's the only
I know that's what I'm saying. If
reason.
we're back to complaining about prices, that's got to make you bullish, right? It's
Oh
like,
yes, it
wait,
does.
is
I've
this
said
shining
it.
face
Yes.
again? Like y'all are complaining about prices? Like Pokemon must be doing it. It's so
Can
funny
we
to me.
have this talk, please? Because this is something I've been
Dude, and
wanting to have with you.
people are like, who is this product for? Who is it for? I just can't figure it out. It's like, what? Like, okay, it is so simple to me. People are making it such okay. The board, super nice quality. If they make the English version the same way it looks in like the Japanese commercials, super nice quality. Damage counters, high quality plastic. They stack, they look good. They're not these little cheapy BS you get out of an ETB. You got the little like metal balls that roll around the thing, and that's how you like flip a coin or what. Super high quality. And then the game board folds out. That's high quality. That's for the players. Oh, but retro, the players can't afford a four. First of all, players love max rarity. Players love max rarity. Players are all about buying cards that they don't need because they look cool and are flashy in their deck. Players are all about buying expensive sleeves. So, wrong. Second, flippers who want the cards in the decks that won't really be meta playable for the actual players. Flippers, what do they want? They want the cards. So they're going to buy the product, open it, sell all the playable stuff onto the market, and players are going to get the whole board, the dice, the damage counters, all the stuff they want for like 100, 150 bucks. It's a perfect product. This whole like, I don't know who this product is for. Pokemon's just, it's a money grab. It's like, y'all are so dusted. It's unbelievable. Like, if you don't think that people are going to want a set of 9 sequential set of Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard, Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur, and Squirtle, Wartortle, Blastoise, all with that super nice gold foil. Like, you are dusted beyond belief if you think that the market isn't going to want that. Alakazam, Mewtwo, Chansey, all these other base set cards. If like what? I can't understand. It is so obvious to me. It is the perfect product. Flippers can reduce their cost basis by selling the playable stuff. The players can get the cool board and all that other stuff for cheaper. They don't have to buy the whole product that they don't want. It's gonna be limited because logistically, it's a tough product to make. It's just nuts to me, dude. But it makes me bullish because it's like if people are back to complaining about prices, Pokemon's doing something right. So sorry for my rant, but that's where I'm at with.
Oh no, I'm glad that you and I, and at least in this case, probably agree more than we disagree on this because I do have some additional information about that. So what you just said, I agree with almost to a T. For the most part, I do understand that this is going to be a high value dollar item, that $400 for any MSRP item is hard to swallow. It's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of the average consumer. And so taking that into account, I get the initial knee-jerk reaction people have because it is, I think, the single most expensive thing Pokemon's ever put out for like an item that you could buy.
But it also seems like the nicest thing that Pokemon,
Yeah,
like
yeah. So that's not to
quality
say that it's
wise,
not
like it looks
deserving it. I'm
good.
not here to say it's not deserving it. I'm just starting to say the facts that I think it is the most expensive. We're not counting the Japanese solid gold Pikachu that the happened in,
Oh yeah.
or
Okay.
any of the Japanese exclusive products. I'm talking English exclusive products, and I think this is the most expensive like TCG product that they've released. Because maybe big plushies, there have been more expensive things or something, but that doesn't count either. Fancy watches, fossil watches, or whatever it is with Pokemon on it. But that being said, I understand that knee-jerk reaction, but like the question of like who's gonna want it, or people trying to spout that there's gonna be no demand, it's just gonna sit on the shelves. That is legitimately people copium because they're broke and they couldn't afford it, and they're trying to rationalize in their head why they shouldn't have bought it, or couldn't have, or why it was a good reason they couldn't afford it, so that when it does come out, it's a defense mechanism. So when it comes out and it doubles in price, and there's this kind of, or whatever happens, and they didn't get it, they can tell themselves, oh, I didn't want it anyway, it's a dumb product. But in reality, the fact is it is just an expensive product, an uncomfortably expensive product that you really at first don't know if you're going to immediately be able to flip and make double your money. So you're not willing to put that sort of money or capital, that much risk into such a high-end item. So the initial response is to just get angry, say you don't like it, say it's too expensive, I didn't want it to begin with. But that's a complete lie, because everyone before this product came out, before the price of it came out, was creaming their pants about how these remakes of the base set trio and these 3 decks with all the hollow foils and all this blah 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 blah. And I'll admit, I was one of them. I was one of the people saying this is gonna be cool. It's gonna be really expensive. I honestly didn't think distribution was gonna get it. So here's the information I have about this, Nick, for you. My distributor told me, and he distributes for Amazon. He told me that I could have 2 of them to pre-sell. I called him immediately afterwards. I was like, hey, these things are pre-selling for like 700, 800 bucks. Can I put it up right away? And you guarantee that I really want to capitalize on this. I don't usually do pre-sales. And I told him that. I was like, hey man, I don't usually do pre-sales, but can you guarantee me? He literally is like, okay, yes, you can do that, but don't sell more than 2. He told me do not sell more than 2. And I'm not a large account, so I can't say that I'm a big fish or anything like that. So I'm sure some of the bigger guys out there in the hobby, Rusty, guys who have like 12 distributors across all of them, they're going to get like a dozen or a baker's dozen of these things maybe, or maybe more from the distributor. I don't think that we're going to have a Charizard UPC situation though, because another situation, when it went up on the Pokemon Center, did you see how quickly it sold out? It sold out in less than 2 hours, Nick. And it was a limit of 1 per person. So you can't go on and tell me that there were all these people who just bought 10, all these investors who didn't really want the item. It was a lot of people who probably would have maybe bought 2, but they bought 1. And they maybe had to get an alternate account or go to their friends, their grandma's email and put their address in.
I mean, it's funny too, because people are like, oh, Charizard fatigue, we can't deal with another Charizard reprint. First of all, completely disagree with that. People are always going to buy base set Charizard. They love it. Next, people are completely forgetting that the starters have never been hollow, ever. You had your Stormfront Charmander, which was like a reimagining,
which is Charmander great art. So
yeah, like Charmander, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, like have never been hollow. People love that gold border Japanese 25th anniversary hollow, and it's pretty similar. So for them to be bringing that to English, I just think it's gonna do good, dude. Like I don't know if people are just bored and don't have other stuff to talk about, or like you said, people are just like a little bit broke going into the holiday season and they're not trying to drop which I get. Like I totally understand. Like
I get that too, but don't pretend like it's something else and don't just say it if you're broke, you're broke. It's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be more worried if it came out and it was like 150, because then I'd be like, oof, because
then everyone's gonna buy 10 of them. So
exactly.
Cost can be, rather than be prohibitive, cost can also be a barrier to entry. That's what people don't realize about really expensive products like the stamp box promos. The Japanese stamp box promos never dip below 250 bucks. Like everyone's like, oh, I want to buy 1 million of them, like the Scream promos. Well, you know what? The Scream promos, they were $20 or less for a long time. They're $15 to buy like the Psyduck. You can just buy them all day long in mass. You could never buy the stamp promos from Japan for like 200, for less than 250 bucks. And you know what? While everything else has really crashed in price over the last few months, and Japanese, all this stuff, you know what hasn't really crashed in price? What's really been going up in price a lot? Those freaking stamp box promos. And you know why?
I mean, they're pretty fun. Like the art is, I mean, it's subjective, but like the art's pretty fun. Dude, even the Cramorant.
It's amazing. The art's amazing.
Cramorant, but that card is fire.
Yeah, let's not downplay the art. I'm not downplaying the art. But my point is, everyone was thinking that those things would crash because of how many they'd print. They even said they're going to print them to demand. They even said they'd print as many as needed, as many as they were ordered. But it just never happened because the cost to bear, the barrier to entry to cost, and it was a Japanese product, which that's a barrier to entry. But I think cost was more prohibitive than the actual Japanese product aspect about it. And that's why those items didn't just balloon, because instead of buying 10 of them, you could only buy like 2 of them or 3 of them to grade, and you want to keep one of them. And so, yeah, it's the same situation is going to go on with this. No, the item is not for everybody. It is not made for everybody. But that's why there's going to be so limited amount of them. And that is exactly why an item like that is primed to go up in price before it goes down in price. And so honestly, the less people who buy it, the more that it's going to go up in price.
I don't think, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to like, FOMO anybody, but like I can't, because my thing is off the bat, it is an open rip it open, sell the contents, grade the gradable cards play. So to me, if it is short printed, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, how is that going to, because there are going to be a lot of people that want to buy that as a sealed investment, I think. So, because it is a premium product, like, I don't know, man. Like, I think a lot of people that are going to get their hands on these are going to be ripping them instantly. And if supply, like, and I know they're like, oh, we're going to reprint the cards in future products or whatever. Like, honestly, I don't think
let's clarify that reprint, because I have heard that whole we're going to reprint the decks in later sets. They're going to reprint the playable EXs that they put into those decks.
Oh, they're not
They're
doing
not
like
going to reprint the base set Charizard and put it in the next set with a gold freaking border to let everyone who couldn't buy their $400 product. What are these people online who are spitting this narrative smoking? Because I want some of that good, because the stuff I'm smoking isn't nearly as good as what they're smoking, if that's the case.
Yeah.
Because they must be fucking high if they think that Pokemon's going to go and say, okay, we're going to put out this $400 product, guys. But don't worry, we're going to make a cheaper version of it, that the same thing that you guys are all going to get access to. No, they're saying to the players, don't worry, we're not going to make a $400 product that's going to have exclusive cards that balloon up in price that you need 4 of in your competitive deck. We're going to put out those cards in the next set as an EX or a promo in a box, and they're going to be nuked to the ground so that the EX Venusaur or the EX Ho-Oh or the Mr. Mime, the new Mr. Mime card that they're adding in, so that if that breaks the format,
though. I don't know if Mr. Mime's playable. I think that's a vending series card.
well, whatever it is, if they do, whatever the playable new mechanic cards that they do include in it, because they're going to have to put an EX card in the deck to push the new mechanic.
Yeah, there's like Lugia, Ho-Oh, and then maybe like one other one. And I think the Lugia,
those will be reprinted. But people who think
those will also be graded. Those will also be getting graded.
And those are going to be, don't grade those anyway. You don't want to grade the EXs for the most part. I mean, those are going to be exclusive art, though.
Lugia?
Lugia is a popular Pokemon. I'll grade that one, yeah.
I think the Lugia, Ho-Oh, maybe.
I like Ho-Oh if the art's good. But
yeah, Ho-Oh doesn't get as much love for sure. But
yeah, it's a $400 product, man. A lot of people are just going to be too broke or too strapped around the holidays to want to spend that on themselves or an item. They're going to say, I'm going to wait and see. And honestly, when they wait and see, if enough people wait and see and there's not enough of the product out there, those sales that start ticking up for those larger sales, you think that a retailer is going to see a $700 sale on eBay and see that they only have 2 of them on their shelves? And then when you come into their store around November and be like, hello, sir, may I have one of those $400 products? And then the person, the store owner looks at the store shelf, sees the 2 they have, they look at their distributor order, they see that that's all they're going to get. They look back at the person who is shitting on them 2 months earlier about trying to pre-sell it for $400 or $500 or whatever. And they look at them in the face and they say, no, that'll be $750, you fucking idiot.
Yeah, card shops are gonna eat off this product, which is good because card shops have been getting kind of boned lately. So I think they're not gonna get a lot, so over the grand scheme of things, it's probably not gonna be that, but like they're gonna make chunky margins on these. And then 151 I've heard is doing really well, and that's selling for above MSRP. So
It's
Pokemon
going
has a
up in
way.
price. Remember that podcast we had when Mason came on, and that title I put is 151 going to be the first scalpable Pokemon English set?
Yeah, okay, I do remember. Yeah.
And I want you to go on Facebook after this. Everyone right now, and the date is 9/27/2023. Go on Facebook and look at the posts and seeing it people posting again. It's like 2020 again, 2021.
Is it
It's
really people
empty
trying to sell
shelves.
sealed?
People are literally posting a picture in their car seat of like a poster box and one ETB being like, I scored in my local Walmart today. Like, it's amazing.
We're headed back to
It's
the moon, baby. Let's
heartwarming. It's
go.
heartwarming to see.
I like it's our. I mean, I do love to see that though, because it's like, damn, all right, Pokemon's strong. Like they've been crushing it. It's funny. It's like the stores have really been kind of getting shafted for a while now, and it feels like Pokemon knows going into the holiday season, things like that. Like they're kind of blessing. They're blessing LGSs. I think the shiny set will be a good one, but that's probably going to be like a Q1 Crown Zenith type release for English. But I think that set's going to do really well. I think people are going to do well on that as far as like selling it. But yeah, man, it's like, again, $400 is $400. I'm not trying to downplay that at all. Like I get that that's an expensive barrier to entry for most people and things like that, but it's like saying, I mean, I don't know. It's like saying any product. It's like, well, dude, if you pack a product full of 50 packs versus worth of evolving skies, and then are like, I can't believe this product's selling for 600. It's like, well, it's got 50 packs of evolving. You know what I'm saying? Like, what it's got in it to me is so much more. And like Charizard UPC made sense out the gate because you could get it, sell all the packs, grade the cards. Even if the cards weren't gradable, you could still sell. Like you were plus EV just on the content. This is so much more going to be so much more in demand than the Charizard UPC, and so much less printed, in my opinion. I don't have any, you know more obviously about the distributor stuff than I do, but dude, yeah, like for all those, that product is so packed, it's unreal. Because like the Charizard UPC had a playmat, but it didn't have a nice game board. I promise you, all the bougie LGSs that do like game night organized play, all the bougie players are gonna want that game board because it looks nice. It's nice, and it's gonna be like, oh, look at these poor people over here flipping coins when I'm over here doing my little, like the ball thing on the side, and look at my
Roulette.
stackable, yeah, look at
Yeah.
my little stackable damage counters or whatever. Like that, it looks good. Like I'm not even really into the game, but when I saw the commercial for it with the Japanese commercial that they made for it with the two people sitting down at the table playing it, I was like, damn, this looks good, dude. Like this does not look cheapy. Yeah, I don't know. I'm bullish. Like I'm just like, dude, people just don't have anything to talk about, or we're headed back to the moon or something. Because like everybody lately is like, $400 product. Oh my god, it's just like, dude,
We
yeah,
knew
but
it was
look
going to
at
be
it.
expensive. We literally knew it's going to be the most expensive product. Well, we didn't know it was going to be the most expensive, but we knew it was going to be a expensive product.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things, or it's like those Yokohama decks, right? Like when Japanese was going absolutely nuts, Pikachu promos were just out of here, doubling, tripling in price. Like every 5 seconds, you check eBay and the price is tripled or whatever. It's like, yeah, a full art, good looking Yokohama Pikachu deck EX. It's where it's got Pikachu on it, and it looks like the Battle Festa cards that are dummy expensive and going crazy right now. That product is not going to be available at MSRP. It's going to be an expensive product. And those came out and were like, what, $250, $300 or whatever.
For
It's like,
different reasons, though. For totally
for
different reasons.
sure, for sure. But I'm just saying, like, it's, I don't know, man. And like
Dude,
the
people
whole the
got
whole
wrecked on those Yokohama decks, by the way. They got literally really wrecked at the beginning. They were going for 350, 400, and now they're like below like 200 basically. So
okay. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know what the cards are selling for, so I don't know if people are
they're
making
around 600 or 700 or maybe even less at this point in a 10. So I'm not sure what the 10
that's
rate,
pretty
probably
good.
high though.
That's pretty good. But yeah, man, I don't know. Like I think it's really cool. If I had like, I don't know, if I had family members like, like my little nephew, he's into Pokemon and stuff, but he doesn't really play it or anything like that. He just plays the video games and kind of collects the cards. But yeah, I think it would be a cool product to get people into playing the game. And Yeah, man. I think it's
I
no
don't think it's gonna
brainer.
get anyone new into playing the game, bro. Let's be real about that part. I gotta call cap on that because a $400 item that's meant to cater towards someone who's like back in the OG days because it's the original base set trio and the old artworks and a lot of reprints of artworks. That is, I think, specifically catered towards the boomers of the hobby, the people who are already really well established in the hobby who want to spend a lot on it. But I do think it has a large market for it. So I agree with that part. But I just
I
don't
think
think that's going to get new people in
I
per
think
se.
I
But what
think
about the other
Pokemon.
side of things? What if this doesn't happen? Like, what if
What
what
if
we,
what
you and
doesn't
I are
happen?
saying is wrong and they print a million of them? And my distributor is just, he just was being cautious, overly cautious, and he just wanted to make sure, or he got less of them. So, what I wanted after you respond, but talk about the other side possibly too, because there is a world where you and I are both wrong. So,
Yeah, maybe. I think Pokemon knows exactly what they're doing. I think Pokemon knows exactly what the secondary market is going to do with this. I think they know that people are going to rip this open to get the cards because they're going to want to be graded. And the decks have nothing to do. I mean, yeah, maybe the Lugia EX and the Ho-Oh EX are playable or whatever, but like the decks they put inside there have literally nothing to do with the game board side of it. I think Pokemon knows people are going to open this. The flippers are going to take the decks to grade the cards, which the players don't need anyways because they're not even like in rotation or playable or whatever outside of the EXs. Flippers are going to grade the cards, and then they're going to sell the nice game board to people for cheaper on eBay. And that the
think that was
secondary
the
market,
intention when making it, though. I feel like their
I
intention
mean,
would be that it stays together and it's used as it's
I think
intended to
that
be
the
made,
reason
right?
it's together is because it makes sense. It's called TCG Classic. And so they're like, we're going to put these classic decks in there. We're going to make it seem like a premium product. Because if Pokemon was just like, here's a game board with some nice damage counters, and we're going to charge you 150 bucks, people would be bitching and moaning about it. But if you put it into this nice holiday product to where it's got the OG and all that sort of stuff, and like logistically, as far as profit margins go and things like that, they probably needed to make it like they needed to add value to the product in some way in order for it to make sense. That's why I think that things are included. I think that Pokemon is very intentional with what they do. I don't think that any moves that they make are just like, let's just try this and see what happens. Like I'm sure they, or I would hope that they've got people watching the secondary market, got people working for them that maybe flip or, like understand what's going on in the secondary market. And maybe like I'm just so in my own head about it, but I look at it and I'm just like, dude, this is a perfect product. It reminds me of the Kaiba briefcase that they did for Yu-Gi-Oh, to where it was like you could open the briefcase, pull the cards out that you wanted to be graded, sell everything else to people. People bought the briefcase, they wanted the glass, thing with the screw down that you can hold your cards in. They wanted that. You could sell literally all the contents on eBay and make so much of your cost basis back just doing that. Being low on the cards that you're grading, grade the cards, everybody wins. Everybody wins. That's exactly what this product seems like to me. It's like everybody wins. Players get the nice stuff for cheap. Flippers get the cards that they want to grade. Everyone wins. Like I don't know. That's just how I'm looking at it. But
And I also feel like it's one of those things that if you don't like it, you just don't buy it. So like the level of like anger and negativity that it's being met
yeah,
with is kind of funny. And like it's just the totally different like your perspective is kind of how I saw it. I was like, oh man, this thing is crazy. Like I talked to my distributor, I called him right away. It's like, hey, how many of these things am I gonna get? Are you ordering these? Are we getting these? He's like, oh yeah, I want to talk to you about that. Should I take all of, he literally asked me, he's like, do you think this is going to be a good product? I was like, yes. I told him, yes, I think this is going to be a home run product. I think you're going to get limited amounts of it. So I think you should try to get as much as you want. He said, yes, I'm getting a really limited amount of it. I didn't know if I should take it all or if I should ask for less. I was like, no, if you can, I would take it all personally. And so I hope I didn't lead him down a bad road with that. But to be honest, with the like 10 or 20 that he's gonna get like be able to get, I don't think there's gonna be much issue. But what do you think the other side of this might look like if say he was wrong and I did lead him down the wrong path and I said, yeah, order it all, bring them all, and they really do bring them all, and there's literally thousands of these things that get dropped on the doorstep. And
still won't be enough. Okay,
So you
Charizard.
think that maybe if they put as many as a Charizard UPC and they were on Target shelves, Walmart shelves, and people walk by and they saw them, every person available would clear out their savings to buy it, no matter what they're doing?
I don't necessarily think that they would clear out their savings to buy it, but like I'm looking right now at the Classic Collection Celebrations Pop Report. Across all grades, there's 21,195 Charizards graded, and almost 14,000 of those are 10s. 14,000. Okay. Celebrations was everywhere. Everywhere. There was tons of that product. ETBs, the blisters, the lunchbox. Dude, that stuff was everywhere. That was not a limited product. The only thing limited about celebrations was the UPC. Like that stuff was available forever. And
There was
Celebrations
the ripping
Charizard,
aspect of Celebrations, though, whereas this has no packs to rip. You do. I mean, a
yeah.
lot of the argument against this product that I'm hearing from some of the people who are the most vocal about it is that it doesn't have any of that like inherent fun gamble that you look for in a high-end product that makes you want to rip it open to look for something. Because like once you rip it open, you have everything and they're all the
Yeah,
same.
but I would argue that like if you look at all the high-end product they've ever done, it's not about the ripping. It's about the
Right.
stuff that you're guaranteed. Like if you look
Like
at
the
that,
Mario product or like
yeah, or the
the
XY
Poncho
Classic collection
Pikachus. Like
that's got
those
all the
aren't,
full art
yeah.
waifus in it. Like you can see them, or the Hidden Fates box has got a Rayquaza statue and a Rayquaza card in it. Like that's why you open that, not because you were trying to like hit some other crazy card out of Hidden Fates. You open it because you wanted the Rayquaza statue and the Rayquaza promo. So to me, it's like it just makes sense. Like you're guaranteed a nice game board and then 3 decks packed full of hollows. And to what you were saying about like, it doesn't have the gamble. Flippers don't buy booster boxes, right? Like that's not a business model. Flippers don't buy booster
I don't
boxes.
open packs. I don't gamble. I'm
Yeah,
not a
you don't
gambler.
gamble, right? Regular people that are trying to interact with the hobby, buy booster boxes, buy booster packs, things like that. The people that are gonna buy this product, it's perfectly for. Not everything has to be for everybody, but again, everybody wins. The collectors are going to get the cards that they want in PSA 10. They're probably going to buy Charizard for $200, $250. They can get the card that they want for a PSA 10 and then not have to spend
That Charizard's
$400.
not going to be $250, Nick. You are
No?
no. A
Cheaper or
$400
more?
product,
You think
the
it's going to be more
Charizard,
expensive or cheaper?
more, much more.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm trying to be, conservative here, but like
I know you don't want to get attacked in the comments, but give them some fire down below. I will give them some fire. That gold Charizard in this $400 product graded in a PSA 10 will not be, the first sales are going to be stupid. But I don't think that the 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th sale will be below $500 for this thing.
500? Damn, okay. All right, that's super bullish. I mean, I don't know, man. Like I said, I just even if they overprint it, I just think that there's so much demand for what is inside that product that and look, the market's going to optimize, people are going to figure it out. People are going to open it. If there's demand for the game boards, like if the game board is selling for $150, $200 on eBay, people are going to start buying these to open. They just are. And if the cards are selling for $200, $300, $500, like you said in PSA 10, people are going to open the product. It is what it is. So the end consumer, the people collecting that want the graded cards, they get the cards. And then the game, the people that are into the playability get the game board. Like it's just, it makes sense to me. Like it's not that deep. And I just don't, dude, people that are like, oh, Charizard fatigue and oh, Charizard reprints. It's like, if you want to talk about reprints, you need to go to Yu-Gi-Oh! And you need to see how much money modern Dark Magician girls, Blue Eyes White Dragons, Dark Magicians, Red Eyes are selling for. That company lives off reprints, especially in their specialty product. They haven't come out with every single time they make a specialty product, it's always like Egyptian God cards, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Dark Magician. It's always the same stuff. So for Pokemon, the reprint it's nowhere near as saturated as it is in Yu-Gi-Oh! And dude, people just love base set Charizard. It is what it is. Charizard Celebrations, Charizard, dummy liquid, strong prices, good margin from Rada PSA 10, 14,000 tens. 14,000 just in English. You know what I'm saying? And the Japanese is even more expensive. I want to say Japanese is like $400 or $500, and I'm sure the pop on that is massive too. So
Borders,
I'm
baby. People love their gold border Charizard, baby.
yeah. People just love that Charizard art, which is funny, dude, because there's so many other cooler Charizard arts in my opinion. I get that it's like the one from childhood, but it's like, bro, like that card is kind of mid in comparison to a lot of the other Charizard options out there. But yeah, it's just like, all right, dog. But yeah, the demand for that. Do not underestimate the demand for that card at all. And again, Alakazam, Mewtwo, like all these other ones that we didn't get in celebrations, even in Japanese with the gold border, there was no Mewtwo Hollow. There, you know what I'm saying? Like you didn't get base set Mewtwo with the gold or Alakazam. Like Alakazam is super popular.
And the starters in Hollow, that is, people are
Yeah,
underestimating what the rest of those decks contain besides the big three. Literally, the rest of the cards are all just not, maybe not as, those won't be $500 a card, but they'll be like 70, 50, $75 probably.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I think they'll do well, man. Like I'm bullish on it. There's a lot of stuff in there that people are gonna want. I don't think logistically, I don't think that overprinting is really like a possibility. If you look at the Charizard UPC, it wasn't. I mean, it had the little drawers that you pulled out, but other than that, it was just a bunch of stuff shoved into a box. It wasn't all these individual game pieces, a nice game board, and the decks. Like I don't know.
logistically, this one's harder to reprint for sure. Yeah.
It's probably more expensive for them to make because I would hope that because the game board looks really high quality in the commercial. So if that's the case with it, like if they make it out of nicer materials and things like that, it's probably not super cheap for them to produce either. So, and I think it's good. Like I think it's good overall for the hobby that Pokemon can release a product like this and have it sell MSRP for 400 and then sell pre-sale on secondary market for 700. If the hobby was dead, if people weren't stoked, if people didn't want this, that would not be the case, and they would not be and they would not be directionally making moves like, hey, we're going to release a $400 product going into the holiday season. If Pokemon was like, ooh, the market's really weak right now, we're not able to sell as much as we thought they were, or we were, and people aren't really liking Scarlet and Violet, there's no way in hell they'd be releasing an expensive premium product like that. Like they just wouldn't. So yeah, I don't know. It makes me like bullish, I guess.
And anyone who was worried about the whole ultra premium collection with like Charizard ultra premiums, I just want them to go on TCG Player and look at where the price is charting for these ultra premium collections that are coming out soon for the new one. And just that should help you realize that the issue has been corrected. That like the ultra premium overprinting issue that we saw with Charizard ultra premiums, maybe that was because the market reacted and they over ordered, and so they overprinted in demand, or they predicted that demand and they overdid it. But I think with the Mew UPCs with 151, that doesn't seem to be the case. There's not a million of them. There's a good amount of them, and people didn't over order on them either. And I think with this, you're going to see the continuation of that trend, of that correction of moving away from overprinting a premium product that just sits, because it doesn't help when you have distributors who are literally with your sales reps on your phone saying, hey, we can't move these items. We have to discount them to basically what we bought them for just to move the Charizard UPCs. Don't do this to us again. Like, we're not going to order as much next time. So the Pokemon company hears that feedback, and I think they can over time correct it. So I think we're in for a ride around the holiday season. I've said multiple times publicly that I do not believe that in December this item will be selling for less than MSRP, that it will be likely closer to the double MSRP mark rather than the lower than MSRP. I think that would be more likely the case, because if it really is as limited as it seems to be, and from what I'm hearing, most stores are getting limited amounts of it, is what they're being told, then around the holidays, you're trying to tell me that one or two people who walks into the store and sees that big thing on the shelf aren't going to buy it for their beloved little child who loves Pokemon and just have it under the tree for Christmas time? it's like the perfect gift for like if your kid is a huge TCG nerd and you want to get them something nice as like a parent and really spoil your kid. If you don't know anything about it, you're gonna buy the most expensive item that's on the shelf for Pokemon for your kid, and that's that item. So even parents who don't know anything about it will just buy it because it's the most expensive thing. So I am bullish on the fact that I think it's going to be limited. I have some confirmation that it's pretty limited from my viewpoint and from my advantage of working through the distributor that I do. And from what I've seen with other distributors, it seems to be the case from what my friends are telling me. So we'll see what it actually plays out. But
I think too, another thing I just thought about, like, I think in addition to the fact that people are going to want to break it down out of the gate, either because they're opening it as a gift or, you know, flippers are opening it to grade the cards and sell the rest of the stuff. Shops in general, I think, and just businesses are going to want to break this product down because it's heavy and it's probably going to be really expensive to ship because it's got the game board and all that stuff inside of it. So that even makes me like even a little bit more bullish on, I mean, you know, I'm not the sealed investor dude or whatever, but like that to me, it's like as a sealed product, I'd feel pretty confident in that because what sort of TCG player seller is going to want to ship a massive box that's going to cost them like $35 to ship versus breaking it down, listing all the cards individually as near mint singles, and then maybe selling the game board separately. I think very few people are going to keep these sealed for that, you know, for that reason too, because shipping's a consideration. It is, you know, an expensive product, but shipping might be like $30. So
field collectors don't really care what's on the inside of the product though, and they also don't care how big and bulky it is because they want it to be big and bulky because they're displaying it usually. So if it displays well, I could see sealed collectors just literally not even caring that there's, you know, just 3 decks inside and they can order everything online for cheaper. That they just want it sealed because they know that it's limited and that they know that it's going to be over time. You can't make more of them because it's really hard to make. And it's just like one of those things that as a sealed collector you want. So I'm not a sealed collector, but I can see how the sealed collector mentality might view something like that. But I could also see someone who only collects booster boxes or who only like invests in sealed booster boxes looking at the item and saying like, hey, I could buy 4 booster boxes of X, Y, or Z set. Why would I do that? Or why would I buy this one box when I could buy 4 booster boxes? And, you know, at the same level, maybe that gives them more enjoyment. So I don't know. I'm curious though. This would be a good thing for the comment section though. But in down the comments down below, I want to know where you guys think that this product will end up this holiday season price wise. Do you think that it's going to be above or below MSRP? And for bonus points, leave what you specifically think it'll sit at around December. Because it comes out in November, it'll have a month to be out, a month for the FOMO and the hype and craziness to go away. But where do you think this will be at in December, above or below MSRP? And if you want bonus points, leave the number down below in the comments.
See those price targets, baby. Let's see them.
Yeah, because I'm curious because this will help me get a gauge of like how other people feel about it. Because if a bunch of people start saying like, oh, $200, $150, $300, like way under, I'm gonna be like, oh, so I'm overly bullish about this because I'm a dirty flipper and I can only see the graded card potential. And people who don't do that maybe don't see that the same way. So it'd be really cool to see what that ends up looking like. Because honestly, the comment section is always pretty popping in these videos. Like I really, really appreciate how engaging a lot of people get with the comments in these cardboard hands videos. So I'm curious to see where the conversation goes with that.
Now I got to go back and read the comments and see what people have been saying. But dude, I mean, I wish I could get the product or whatever. Like I didn't buy it on Pokemon Center, and I'm not gonna pay $600-700. So I'll probably just end up buying the singles that come out of it. But if I could get it for MSRP, hell yeah, I'd be picking that up. I'll probably let my girlfriend know and my mom, like, yo, if you're at Target, if you by any, I mean, it probably won't be a Target, but like if you by any chance see this stuff on the shelf, I got my whole family on Lorcana. I'm like, yo, if you ever see this, I sent a picture of the booster. I was like, if you ever see this, snap by all of it, like all of it. Yeah, dude. So like, Yeah. If I could get it at at MSRP or anything, okay, yeah. If I could get it at MSRP, I'd be snagging it for sure. Man is loaded up over there. Okay.
To say I'm bullish on Lorcana is probably an understatement. I did not expect myself to be one to feel like I'm a buyer of Lorcana right now more than I'm a seller of it. I realize this because at the shows, like I typically see other vendors selling it, and I'm thinking about like wanting to lowball and try to buy them out, so then I can kind of sell it for a dollar or two more at the convention. So I'm more bullish than most people are on Lorcana simply because I've been exposed to it quite a bit. Like the card quality is really, really nice. Like especially after going back and forth, dude, it's hard. Opening Lorcana and then opening 151 is really, really hard to go back and forth between because 151 quality has been really bad. I think you and I were speculating like whether we'd get the celebrations or the Scarlet and Violet. We certainly got the Scarlet and Violet's print quality on this one. So it is what it is. They'll give it some conditional rarity with the English 10s. I think the whole Scarlet and Violet era, this is a whole conversation for another podcast, which we will have probably on the next one. But I do think the whole Scarlet and Violet era 10s, they are garnering huge premiums compared to Sword and Shield era 10s. I found like the Miriams, the Ionos, a lot of these types of cards in 10s are garnering much higher premiums than previous generations, even like Sword and Shield. And I think it's because there's understanding that the quality has gone down on the cards and that it is legitimately, you don't just send and get an 80% 10 rate. It's legitimately hard to get right out of the pack mint condition cards from this era. So much
Even
like
in Japanese, dude. Like I got a bunch of Raging Surf stuff headed to me right now, and I'm just hoping and praying that it's in good condition. I mean, I'll sell it raw if it's not gradable, but yeah, it's been getting worse in Japanese too. You really got to pay attention and make sure stuff doesn't have lightning or a bad cut or anything like that. So
yeah,
but
so when I'm
again,
opening Lorcana and that's the kind of thing we're seeing in Pokemon, and I'm seeing like clean edges and like nice. I'm like having to squint to see the little tiny fleck of whitening. I'm trying to tell myself, I'm thinking to myself like, wait, that's probably not even whitening. That's dust.
it's a 10, baby. That's
And
a
it's a
10.
10. Yeah, I'm like,
Bro,
holy
okay,
crap.
so I legitimately think, and this is a really small sample size, but I legitimately think that PSA is grading on a curve for how bad English has gotten. So my barber, who's like super into sports cards and stuff, he like has me submit stuff for him every once in a while. He's like total collector boy, doesn't really grade a lot or whatever, but he'll pull some big stuff and he's like, I want to get this graded or um but his friend gave him a couple of the gold Charizards from Obsidian Flame to grade. And he like showed them to me and he's like, do you think these will 10? And I'm like, no, bro. Like I'm looking at them. I'm like, these have got whitening in all the corners. I'm like, no. And I was like, these are not going to 10. And he was like, oh, it's okay. Like just send them in with my stuff at 40, not even at bulk. He wanted to go full. And I was like, bro, like financially, I have to advise against this. Like, anyways, the cards came back. One of the Charizards is the only time I've ever gotten this grade in my life. One of the Charizards got a PSA 8.5.
Well, I've gotten a couple 8.5s before.
I've
I thought
never
that guy
gotten an 8.
retired. There's one guy.
Yeah, dude, like I never have gotten an 8. So I thought that was funny. But the other one got a 10. It got a 10. And I'm like, dude, no way. There's no way in hell this would ever. And maybe it's because I sent it at 40 and they were like, oh, well, let's give them 110 or something. But I'm just like, bro, this is crazy. Because yeah, both of them were a little bit OC, and they both had whitening on the corners, and so I'm just like, again, very very small sample size, but I'm like, yeah, PSA is probably grading on a curve for English card quality because this stuff is.
I guess the Riz is gonna get sent after all. I've been considering this one. It's the nicest I've seen, but it's still in my book would it possibly 9 because of one little corner has like the littlest bit of whitening, but it's as close as we're gonna get. So I guess that's what we're doing.
That's a Giovanni card. I'll make a call to PSA after this. I'll let them know. My buddy Old card shops got a Giovanni headed in. Don't know what to do, bro. They'll take care of you. Don't even worry about it.
It's a beautiful card though. I opened up an ETB last night and I pulled this one, and I had to do one because dude, the pull rates have been really bad. And I opened an ETB right before that, and I opened literally a Jinx EX and 2 Cosmos Hollow Energies.
Let's
Oh,
go.
oh, there's my Jinx. There it is.
Bro, if anything like reinforces how mid English is compared to Japanese, it's the fact that they chose to do Cosmos Energies, bro. Like
I
y'all
like
could
the Cosmos Energies, but that it's supposed to replace a hit. Is what it feels like when you're opening. So like in an ETB, I would have got typically 3 hits in like a 9 ETB of like maybe Crown Zenith or something.
just put the Cosmos Hollow on the actual cards though, like on the base, the 150 or the 100, and I think the set's like what 165 cards or something. So like put the Cosmos Hollow on those. People would lose their minds if you made the regular cards have the like, dude, that'd be so sick. I mean, that's part of the reason why people love those mid-era reverses, is because a lot of them have unique hollow, and some of them have Cosmos foiling. I think like Hidden Legends or something like that has
That's
Cosmos.
my favorite. Yeah, Hidden Legends.
People love that because they can get arts that they like that are just commons, uncommons, rares, whatever. They can get them in Cosmos foil. Everybody is going to have a favorite Pokemon from the 151 set. For master set, like people would love the complete like master sets of I don't know, man. Like it was just like y'all.
They're saving that for the promos, man. They always save the Cosmos Hollow for the promos because that's what.
Fair. That's fair.
Yeah, because the poster boxes, the starters, they have. Oh, and that's a whole nother thing. I've opened probably 36 poster boxes looking for the starters to get gradable copies. Not a single copy I think is gradable out of the starters.
Those are all Cosmos, though. You're saying
they're all Cosmos Hollows. They're gorgeous. Let me show.
Okay, that's kind of fire because
they're my favorite thing.
Charmander, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, right? Ooh, yeah, those are nasty. That Arcanine that they released, I can't remember what that was, but like the Arcanine they came out with that had Cosmos Hollow, I really like that one too.
Yeah, the Growlithe as well. But I have so many of these, and they're all 9s or 8s or 7s because there's like whitening around the edges. But they're Cosmos Hollow.
What do they sell for raw?
I think they're a couple bucks, so they're still very nice. They're still very profitable. I'm gonna keep them though because I think they're really nice. I always keep my promos. That for anyone who's watching, if you're someone who has distribution, this is not going to be news to you, but if you do ever get distribution, you start breaking down a lot of product and stuff. The move has never been to take that product and break down those promos and dump the promos right away onto the market. Those things are like the cheapest there. Well, they start off a little bit expensive because that's when the demand is right in the beginning of when it comes out, but then they typically tank really bad down to like cents on the dollar, but usually they do really really good over time. So a lot of those old promos from Sword and Shield, Sun and Moon era, those 3-pack blisters, the 1-pack blister promos, the check lane blisters, the Cosmos Hollows, they sit at 50 cents or under for a long time. But eventually, when it sells out of TCG Player and all those 50-cent listings get depleted and people fill them into their binders, their promo collecting binders, they go up. And there are lots of those that are $10, $15 for a Cosmos Hollow like Toxtricity or a Chansey Hollow from a certain era that just there's none listed because there weren't a lot purchased from like Chilling Reign or something. Or there's like the Champions Path promos from the little 3-pack pin promo boxes from Champions Path. There's a Gengar that was in one of those boxes that's like $20. It's ridiculous. It's just a regular hollow. But if I were to dump it right after I got it, it would have been like 30 cents. So if you are breaking down a lot of product, you ever get things like that, you want to hold on to them until you get the right time to dump because everyone collects promos. There's a lot of promo collectors. So little tip for anyone out there just getting new distribution. Don't dump all the product. Dump a lot of the stuff you can make your profit on, but the stuff you're not making good margins on, don't just get rid of it. You got to like try to have a plan for it. And that's what I would recommend.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, because you'll find like you'll just go through, and if you did your, sorted it well, like I like that stuff. You saw how I had it. I just had the 3 promos in like a little team bag together, and I have them in a 5-row box back there. So eventually, when I'm going back and doing some inventory and resorting cards in the future, I'll reassess what the value of those cards are, and I'll maybe consider starting to sell some of the singles. So and then you can start controlling the market on it as long as you're one of the few sellers. Now, if you're competing with a ton of people and there's 1,000 other sellers and they have 100 copies each, they're all going to be racing to the bottom. So you kind of have to pick and choose, but they're cents on the dollar anyways. That being said, though, I feel like if there's other stuff you'd like to talk about, we have gone through quite a few nice topics, some good topics here. But if there's any last minute topics you want to throw in, it's probably good as time as ever to start thinking about wrapping it up.
I think we did. I don't know if I ever answered like way back when you asked if like grading has like
Oh yeah,
liquidity.
no, I wanted to get your thoughts on that because that is something
It's
you sell a lot more than I do is graded cards.
yeah, it's been it's weird, man. Like it goes in spurts. It's not maybe as consistent, but ever since 151 came out in English, it was already selling pretty good before it came out, but like now that it came out in English, it is like flying. It's doing really, really well. So that's good. But overall, it's weird, man. I don't know. Like we probably would have been better like talk to Jake about it too, because he's, Mr. Investor and stuff like that. But I look at a lot of stuff that I know is really hard to grade, that I know is hard to find, low pop, all that sort of stuff. And I see it cheap right now. Like I see it really cheap, and I'm just like, man, like I don't.
Shout out to PSA 9 Watsy hollows. I turn those down at $30 all the time coming to my table. It's crazy that I'm like looking at these PSA 9 Watsy unlimited hollows of like Fossil, Unlimited, Jungle, whatever, maybe even some base set ones like Hitmonchan's. And I'm looking at them, I'm like, I comp it. PSA 9 Hitmonchan as a hollow will sell an auction for like $35. So if I buy it, I have to buy it for like $25. And that feels insulting to tell someone that or to ask them $25. So I end up turning them down more often than not because even after buying it for $25, how do I sell that
Yeah,
and make
there's
who wants a PSA 9 Hitmonchan? You know what I mean?
whoa. Love Hitmonchan. But no, I feel like it's like I look at a lot of this stuff and I'm like, damn, man, like this is again, like, the market's the market, demand is demand, and right now, like, demand is just not really on a lot of those, like, things that have fundamentals or whatever you want to call it. Could that shift in the future? Yeah, maybe. But I honestly have been very surprised at like what has performed and what hasn't. I mean, I knew popular stuff obviously would perform, but I look at a lot of cards that are just like eating doo doo or like really stagnant or whatever, and I'm just like, this is crazy. But I feel like over the past couple of years, November specifically, people running auctions on like PWCC in November or eBay in November, like if you're a collector or you're trying to get a good cost, but maybe you're a little bit investor and collector, if you're trying to get a good cost basis on cards that you want, November, you want to be liquid because I swear every single year you can win stuff on PWCC, you can win stuff on eBay for like 60% of market because people are trying to dump because they're trying to get liquidity so they can buy their family nice Christmas presents. You buy that card, 4 or 5 months later, tax season rolls around, people are getting their money back. You list that card for full market and you just made, like double your money or something like that. Like, so I don't know, man. Like I look at a lot of this stuff and I'm just like, yeesh, and like obviously like I'm a business, it needs to be liquid, it needs to turn around. But yeah, there's some cards where I'm like, that has no business being that cheap. Um it feels like really good value. So but on the modern side of stuff, like yeah, everything is just like ripping and roaring. But like on the vintage or middle era, or just like the rarer stuff, it's like, man, this stuff is cheap. Because when you flip, like how expensive it is or how hard it is to find raw, and how expensive it's gonna be if you're gonna pay to get like a PSA 10 candidate. So when you see PSA 10 sell for like literally no premium after grading, shipping, eBay fees, all that stuff, it's just like it's crazy to me, like I don't know, man. So we'll see what happens. But personally, like I've definitely been taking money off the table. Like I started January 1st, 2022 is when I basically like started the business, or was like, I'm going to take this really serious, trying to like build a business with it. So I haven't even been doing this for 2 years yet. And initially I used pretty much all the money to just recycle back into the business, keep growing, things like that. Now I'm at a point to where I want to like start paying myself and take money off the table. So for the past few months, and probably, for the next few months moving forward, I'm just taking money off the table. Like I have plenty of inventory. And that's also like a hedge, like just in case things do slow down a little bit, then it's like
Well,
I
they
have less
will. Around the
exposure.
holidays, they always do. So just as
Which is crazy, dude, because I'm in like the daily refinement Patreon, and everybody in the daily refinement like card call is all like, oh, Q4, like we're all gonna print. And I'm like, I don't know, like it could go either way, but it's
you guys are
interesting that
rookies if that's the case. I mean, maybe so here's how it works. Here's how it usually works. Strong sales September, October, moving into November. Then, like you said, November starts pretty much dropping off hard because a lot of the card folk are broke and they all always used to sell their investments to make money for their holiday expenses or whatever, and they stop buying for their personal as well. So you stop getting the personal collectors around the holidays who are buying for themselves because they have to buy for their families, and you start getting liquid or illiquidity problems that happen from businesses or from people who are dumping at times when they really are ill-advised to do so, and they do so in auctions usually. So you have that combination that always happens around then. So you usually see a strong holiday set around the holidays. So 151 is that set. The Pokemon Company anticipates that, and so you see strong sealed sales for that holiday set. But you typically see a drop off in slabs. You see a drop off in personal collection buying, and you just see an overall market. I don't want to say dip, but of about 10 to 20% around the holidays. So it is not the same for other retail. Now, if you ask any other retailer, you talk to a clothes retailer, a board game retailer, a shoe store retailer, a clothing retailer, they are printing in Q4 because that's when all the shopping happens. But collectibles are not something you shop for other people for. Collectibles are an internal or a individual sort of like it's a sport that you play by yourself. It's not a team sport, you know what I mean? Whereas the holidays are a team sport sort of situation. So the team sports do better around the holidays than the individual selfish ones do. And so Pokemon is not you don't need Pokemon to live. Your family is not going, if you don't buy yourself that box of Evolving Skies for your PC around Christmas time, your family isn't going to look at you and be like, where's that box of Evolving Skies on your shelf there, Timmy? Where's that at? I see you're a failure because you don't have that sixth box in your case of Evolving Skies. No. They will say though, if you come to the dinner without a present for little Sally, who is their niece, they're gonna say, we got you a gift this time. Why didn't you give little Sally a gift? And they will remember that. So your priority as a person, as a real person around the holidays, isn't Pokemon as much. That can wait until after the holidays when you're not going to get the judgmental stares. So, that's where I think the reality sets in for the Pokemon hobby around the holidays is there's real situations you got to think about.
It's funny you said that, dude. I remember I bought an Alakazam Gold Star PSA 10 a while ago. It was probably like a little over a year ago or something. And we were at it was like a holiday or a family event. And I had like just gotten it in the mail, and I like pulled it out and was like looking at it to make sure everything was good and all that sort of stuff. And I was explaining to like my brother and sister-in-law and stuff. It's like, yeah, like wasn't telling them prices or anything because I didn't want them to have a heart attack. But I was like, yeah, like this is, and they're like, what like makes it so special? Like they liked Pokemon when they were kids, but like they did not care at all. And I was not about to tell them like, yeah, like this is a really expensive card, and I think it's like maybe a good investment or what. Like it just, so it's funny you're saying about like the judgmental stares, because yeah, it's definitely not something I would be doing in the future around like the holidays or anything like that. Like, yeah, I get, and plus it's hard too, like to tell somebody like, well, what do you want for Christmas? Oh, I want a PSA 10 Team Aqua's Kyogre from like,
Nobody
here's the
does that.
eBay link.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Your
it's a little
significant
bit.
other isn't gonna buy you your favorite Pokemon card that they hate that you collect. They're gonna buy you like a ticket to a show that they can go with you to and enjoy together. You know, they're gonna get you a nice comfy blanket that they can enjoy with you on the couch. They're not gonna buy you a slab that you can throw in your fucking box and on your closet and tell your friends online about, and then they can sit there and hate, you know, your significant other rolls their eyes whenever they talk to you about it. And I'm not trying to say that's what happens at all. I have a very loving significant other who goes to the Collectacons with me. So before anyone in the comments is like, hey, that's not what's happening just because that's what's happening to you, I'm just making a joke. But it is a
Yeah,
real thing, though. A lot of people in the hobby, they, you know, their significant others don't necessarily agree with it as much, what they spend on it. So, you know,
my
they have to
girlfriend,
stop.
my girlfriend's definitely very supportive. Like, she's never been like, oh, this is dumb or anything like that. It was funny though. Like, I had that Giovanni card in Japanese in a 10, and I was looking, I'm like, oh, I kind of want to keep this. Like, I really like it. And she's like, for what reason? For what? There's no reason. I was like, yeah, you're right. And
She's a keeper.
so,
She's a keeper.
no, she's good at like grounding. Like, yeah, she's good. Again, she's very supportive, but like she just reminds me like anytime I get like a little bit of like, oh, the collector is creeping in, and I'm like, oh, I kind of want to get this or this. She's just like, for what? Like, for what? And I'm like, yeah, you're right, and brings me back down to earth about it. So
It's good to have that grounding. Yeah, for sure. So have you found though, to circle back, did you find that the slabs are in is slowing down a little bit compared to other things, would you say? Like your singles are doing better, but the slabs are maybe slowing down right now?
yeah, well, it's weird on eBay. Like, I mainly sell slabs, but like at Collectacon, the binder is just like, man, like if I had 3 4 binders like filled with stuff, like I feel like it would have done so well. And you can make a good, good chunk of change out of these binders. Slabs still sold well, but I think you have to have a little bit of everything, right? It's kind of like Mason will always say when he's talking about his business, he's like, if Magic comes out with a doo-doo set, we've got Pokemon and we've got plushies and we've got video game repair. Like, we've got all these other parts to the business that are sort of compensating for maybe like a bad set coming out. I kind of feel like it's the same way in Pokemon. It's like right now, if you have sealed going into the holiday season, like if you're sitting on a decent sized sealed position, I bet you're gonna print. Yeah, like it looks like you're doing good. So like I bet you're gonna print. Like, I would be very surprised if you did not sell out of everything that you list, because like you said, it's way easier for a mom, a grandma, a significant other, whatever, to hop on eBay and buy a box because they're like, oh, well, they can open it, versus like, oh, well, I have to buy the specific graded card they want. It's just more accessible. So I think that stuff's gonna do, and I'm sure TCG Player will do big sales. Like I know they did like a Black Friday deal last year where they did like the cash back and stuff. And with 151, I don't know if you saw that. We don't have to go like in a whole thing, but like CGC sent out a bounty for the first person to collect all the base set of 150 to master set 151 basically in CGC slabs. They were like giving out a bounty. They sent out like an email and stuff. So I think TCG Player, like especially with a set like that, there's going to be a lot of people that want to finish their sets. So maybe they do 5% for everything, but if you're buying 151, you get 7% cash back or something. And then people are combining orders because they're buying the cards that they don't already. I don't know. But I think, dude, I think if you're liquid over the holiday season, you stand to be in a good position because everybody else is broke.
That's
So like,
always the case. Being liquid in
yeah,
an illiquid market is always to be the best advice that we could probably, one of the better pieces of advice that we could give is be less broke. But
yeah. Just have more money.
yeah, be richer. Come on, what the hell? Just be better. What are we doing here? But all jokes aside, for all of our viewers out there, you know we greatly appreciate you. I greatly appreciate you. Nick does, as well as our frequent, infrequent, guest host, whoever it is or is of the week. But I think that's where we're gonna call it. I still have to go and run some errands today, and so it is a early day. It's a daytime stream or daytime recording. So for those of you who watched, we greatly appreciate you. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more of these. We will, I always say this, but I mean it. I always mean it when I say it too, but we're going to try to put more of these out. I love doing these talks. And so I think we have a lot coming up these coming next few weeks and months. So we'll probably have a lot to talk about. So you'll probably see more of us in the future. But until then, thank you, Nick. Any last words, any last parting words, any news for the channel before we cut out here?
Nah, just thank you again to Jake if he watches this back. Thank you, Jake, for coming on. And yeah, appreciate everybody in the comments. If you ever have stuff you want us to talk about or questions, feel free to leave those there. But I think we both need to pump out some content more consistently into Q4. People are gonna be at home. They're gonna be craving that Pokemon YouTube content, dog. Like we gotta feed the streets. So hopefully
I
hopefully
could
we'll
put out some
drop.
Lorcana content. I think I need to dip my toe.
Yeah, dude. If you did Lorcana videos, I feel like that would print. I haven't even looked on YouTube for Lorcana content, but I feel like that's definitely a niche that would be good to get into.
Yep. So thanks again, guys. We'll see you guys on the next one. And until then, stay classy.